and we will never stop giving back. You know, we're Matlows at heart. I'm a veteran. I work for an aerospace and defence company who are going to match our donations that we raise, and it's just really exciting. So we'll always keep giving back.
And Nick, for you, you're still serving, but you must have such a close connection with our veterans community as well. Many people you must have known on this walk here today, over 1,200.
Yes.
How does it feel still serving in the Royal Navy, seeing how many members of the armed forces continue to support veterans and their families?
I think you never leave the armed forces. You never leave it, and it's lovely to see that the relationships that you form in service continue after. And you know, we work very hard to stay connected to all of our old shipmates and people that we've worked with for many years and sort of sat alongside in some odd places around the world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you, and it's great to be back with you. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, in a desperate attempt to shore up the illegal immigration crisis that's sweeping through the country, during today's show, Yvette Cooper will announce a raft of new plans, but with record illegal arrivals and escalating asylum hotel protests, will it be too little, too late to save a sinking Labour Party? And as Parliament returns, chaos surrounds the Labour Party. Angela Rayner faces a probe over her 3 homes, and rumours are swirling that Chancellor Rachel Reeves might be gone by Christmas. Meanwhile, in a reshuffle to prop up his wobbling premiership, Keir Starmer has promoted Treasury Minister Darren Jones. He's most famous for saying this.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
Meanwhile, house prices have taken a slump as the market responds to rumours of mansion taxes and capital gains taxes. And as landlords scramble to sell off to avoid NI hikes, has Labour shaken the foundations of the property market? And withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights will not jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland, and that's according to a report backed by former Labour Home Secretary Jack Straw. In a boost to Nigel Farage, Blair's former top man has blasted such claims as entirely groundless. And a heart-warming story. Brave Hannah Breeden was only given hours to live when she was born, but now 18 and with chronic muscular dystrophy, her dad Simon hopes to raise enough money to take her on one final holiday to Disneyland. I'll be joined by Hannah and Simon on today's show to help make their dream of Hannah's last holiday come true. And that's all coming up during today's show. It's great to be back. Did much happen while I was away? Well, apart from the country practically falling apart, apart from hotel protests going through the roof, apart from the Home Secretary, the Home Office and the government fighting in favour of asylum seekers rather than the British people, did I miss much? Today is the first day back in Parliament. Can we expect a raft of solutions to the illegal immigration crisis, or will it sink the Labour government as sure as it sunk the Tory government? We're expecting a huge announcement in Parliament today. In around about 30 minutes' time, of course, we'll be live for you during all of that as we analyse the future of the Labour government approaching Christmas as the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, dig deep into that red briefcase. What will she find other than moths and empty promises? More tax rises for you, the British taxpayer, to prop up those coming over the channel illegally. Will this madness end? We'll be here to try and guide you through it all the way through now until 6 p.m. Please get in touch all the usual ways. gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. It's fabulous to be back. Here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 3 o'clock, well, the top story, Sir Keir Starmer is reshaping his Downing Street team, creating a brand new role at number 10. Labour's Darren Jones is moving from the Treasury to become Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, a job designed, in the words of officials, to turbocharge the government. Jones will be based in number 10, overseeing work across Whitehall to drive the Prime Minister's priorities. James Murray replaces him as Treasury Chief Secretary, while Dan Tomlinson becomes Exchequer Secretary. It follows Sir Keir's recent move to bring in Baroness Manucci Shafiq, the former Columbia University president, as his now Chief Economic Advisor. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary is promising the biggest shake-up of Britain's borders in years as ministers try to bring order to what they call a chaotic legacy. Yvette Cooper will set out Labour's new plan for change with tougher English language rules, expanded detention and a faster appeals process to speed up removals. She's also pledging tighter cooperation with France, more specialist police units and a crackdown on people smuggling networks, including the removal of thousands of social media accounts. But the Conservatives say ministers still don't grasp the scale of the small boat crisis. Reform UK is vowing to save taxpayers billions with a radical shake-up of local government pension funds. At a press conference this morning, the Deputy Chairman Richard Tice said the scale of waste in council-run pensions was a true scandal of mismanagement and claimed his plan could slash council tax bills. Mr Tice, joined by Zia Youssef, went on to say that the scale of the waste in local government is huge and called it a scandal.
The size of these pension funds, the numbers are enormous. Our 13 councils alone, you're looking to March 24, which is the last audited numbers, about £66 billion. What is that? It's bigger than our annual defence budget, just in 13 councils. Across the whole of the local government pension scheme, it's over £400 billion.
And more political news for you. Rachel Reeves is facing a challenge to rule out a series of tax hikes as the Conservative Party are forcing a Commons vote ahead of the autumn budget. The Chancellor likely will have to find ways of raising money in the budget to balance the books as she deals with sluggish growth, higher borrowing costs and U-turns over welfare savings. Possible options could include scrapping the capital gains tax exemption for expensive private homes and changes to inheritance tax rules. Well, that vote is expected on Wednesday of this week after ministers and officials have repeatedly declined to rule out tax-raising measures ahead of the budget. GB News got the views of the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, earlier today.
The government to be honest with people. They have been making a lot of noise about black holes. The truth is, they're the ones who created a black hole with their budget last year. They tax businesses who have shed loads of jobs. Unemployment has been rising every single month since Labour came into power. The economy is doing really badly under them, and now they're coming back for more. So we need them to be honest, and that is what the vote on Wednesday is about. Labour telling us exactly what it is they're going to do, but we're the only party that will defend home ownership.
Royal News and Queen Camilla has revealed that she fought off a man who attacked her on a train when she was a teenager. According to a new book about the monarchy, the Queen told Boris Johnson about the attempted indecent assault during his time as London mayor. She said it happened when she was around 16 or 17 years old and travelling to Paddington in London. When the man tried to touch her, she took off her shoe and hit him before reporting him to police. The Queen has long campaigned against sexual abuse and domestic violence, vowing last year to keep trying to end it. And just some sports news to bring you before I hand you back to Martin. Former British heavyweight champion Joe Bugner has sadly died at the age of 75. The Hungary-born fighter, who fled to Britain as a child refugee, went on to become British Commonwealth and European champion in 1971, controversially retiring Henry Cooper in the process. He twice went the distance with Muhammad Ali, also facing Joe Frazier and Frank Bruno before finishing his career that spanned more than 3 decades with 69 wins from 83 fights. He later moved to Australia, where he was known as Aussie Joe, and died at a Brisbane care home, having battled dementia. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, let's check the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick look at the markets for you this hour. The pound will buy you $1.352 and 1.154 euros. The price of gold, £2,565.98 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,200 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, MPs have returned to Westminster today after a summer of asylum hotel protests. And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is set to announce changes to the rules on migrants as she launches a new plan to stop housing asylum seekers in hotels. And the changes include migrants being required to prove they have sufficient funds before family members join them in Britain, as well as tighter rules on English language requirements, if you believe any of that. Well, I'm joined in the studio by political editor Chris Hope and the former Labour list editor Peter Edwards. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. Chris, great to be back. Let's start the day with a handshake. Beautiful to be back in the big chair with you. Let's start with what we're expected to hear from Yvette Cooper. Around about 30 minutes' time, we believe. Make no mistake, this is now a crisis enveloping the Labour Party, as it did the Conservatives. It sank them. It could sink the Labour Party. Are we going to see anything today that could stem the tide?
So two things happened today on small boats. There's been a bit of movement around people getting new jobs in government. We'll come to that shortly. Right now, they're looking into a statement by Yvette Cooper. She will be unveiling plans to restrict the number of refugees who can bring families here. The numbers have gone up from 4,300 in 2023 to 20,000 a year later, a five-fold increase. Clearly a problem. Unlike other EU countries, asylum seekers, when they get the right to be here, can start to bring over children, partners, wives, husbands, whoever it might be.
And that's an absurdity.
Yes,
it's an utter
other countries don't do it. And in fact, if you were a Brit and you had a foreign partner, a foreign wife, she or he would have to qualify to earn over £29,000 a year to bring in the foreign partner. So in fact, we are fairer as a country to asylum seekers being granted settled status
bigger mugs
than we are to Brits bringing in foreign spouses or partners. That seems a bit wrong, a bit out of kilter. Certainly not what other countries do. So, and they recognise it's a problem. Again, it's scratching the surface. Again, we see from this government they're slowly getting there. They're controlling numbers slowly. We'll get there eventually, but we're not seeing that from Reform UK, who are saying we're going to blitz ourselves out of the European Convention on Human Rights. So the new things we'll hear from Yvette Cooper: you must have sufficient funds to come here, so you're not reliant on benefits, and you must speak English better. This is about bringing greater fairness and balance, she will tell MPs. We should also, I think, update on this one-in, one-out plan with France. The first 100 to be supported in coming weeks. We're seeing there Yvette Cooper on screen now. So.
And Chris, no doubt Yvette Cooper will fire torpedoes metaphorically towards the Conservatives on this, because, to be fair, it was a ruling they brought in. The Conservatives allowed this insanity, let's be obvious, let's be frank about it, to happen. The fact that...
Well, it's a bias against Brits who are here. That's what I don't quite understand this.
And we've heard from multiple housing officers today who said this is a problem they've been forced to deal with. So one person comes in on asylum, suddenly 3 or 4 family members, and there's a legal obligation to house them, which, of course, means that Brits are pushed
that
down
obligation,
the queue.
Article 8 of the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights.
It's the chicken nugget stuff. And they say they're going to clamp down on that again today.
Well, today we hear from the government they are looking at tweaking that. The Article 8 is the right to a family life. They are looking at, they say here, to tighten the application of Article 8 to ensure that Parliament, not courts, are making decisions. We've been here before, by the way, about tweaking ECHR. The Tories talked about it. It never happened.
A quick nibble, if we could, pardon the metaphor, on Angela Rayner. 3 homes ruling. Is this a big... I'm finding it... I was away for the week in California, and I was looking at this from afar, and I was thinking... Don't a lot of people do this who have money? Don't a lot of Conservatives do this? Yes. She's planning ahead for a future. She's trying to avoid inheritance tax in a legal way. She's got multiple homes across the country.
We don't know all that. We don't know that.
But that's what people are talking about. And nothing illegal has happened.
Nothing illegal has happened. Is it a problem? The answer is probably no. It looks like tax planning. We don't know the full detail yet. What we do know is that she removed her name from the deeds of her home in her constituency in Ashton. She bought a new flat in Hove, reported to be £800,000. Said that was her main home, so didn't pay the extra on stamp duty you would do if it were a second home. It may have saved her £40,000. You're smiling already when I'm explaining it, Martin, so it clearly tickles you.
No, I'll tell you why I'm smiling, and that is she's doing what a sensible, wealthy person does, but... Is it a bad look for the lifelong socialist who's slammed people for privilege and wealth their entire career?
And the Cabinet Minister in charge of homes policy, the Cabinet Minister who wants to get people off the streets in homelessness. They haven't got, by the way, a homelessness minister. It's under her gaff. She now has the status of Ashton isn't clear because she just doesn't have a title to that. But the point is, we are going to hear later. The government says today there's a court order which restricts her from providing further information information, which is urgently working on rectifying. Angela Rayner recognises she's got to be more transparent about this. There's a court order in place. If that is varied, we may get the full picture.
OK, sorry to keep waiting so long, Peter Roberts. We've been catching up with each other for this past week. On a serious point, is anything going to come out today that can save the Labour Party from the same grim fate that met the Conservatives on illegal immigration, or is this simply, to use a metaphor that's been used a lot, just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic?
Martin, the language you're using, I think you've had too many pina coladas by your pool in California. You're talking about the Labour Party being sunk by Angela Rayner, who's a great working-class representative, albeit one in the headlines constantly at the moment, and then Labour announcing measures to deal with what is the number one public concern, which is what's happening with the immigration and asylum system. Yeah. And it is actually beneath the kind of brouhaha from Reform of the Conservatives, the painstaking capture of the detail that is going to help us make progress. And forgive the cliche, but there is no silver bullet. It's a mixture of different things. The deal with France, some returns are actually happening now. Remember, the Rwanda policy led to 0 forced returns. New rules announced today by Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, on speaking English language. New clampdown on wider family members. This is the type of detail that will help Labour make progress, and I do contrast that with the Rwanda policy, which, if you like, was a big bang, one big announcement. Rwanda will solve everything, except it couldn't even get to the starting line.
What about the reshuffle, or mini reshuffle, rearranging the deck chairs again, if you may use that metaphor? Darren Jones, most known to our viewers for that ridiculous statement that most people coming over the channel in is. Let's show the clip again. This is what Mr Jones is most known for, at least on this channel.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not. No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Peter Edwards, my point to you is simple. If Darren Jones thinks that the most people coming over the channel on dinghies are women and children, why should I believe a single thing he says?
Well, he clarified that, and he's actually best known for being a solicitor, which he was before entering Parliament, and then Treasury Minister for many years, as Chris indicated earlier, doing the kind of toil, backroom work of the spending review, which is not fun, but it's vital for any government, especially in tough times. What's interesting about the reshuffle is we're used to these quite big ones under Tony Blair or Theresa May, where a lot of prominent faces change around. What we haven't got, we haven't got an ideological reshuffle either. We might have quite a Starmerish one in that it's technocratic, it's moving around some chess pieces to get onto Tony Blair's favourite word, which is delivery, because if you like, the pressure, and the public are disenchanted, we have to accept that. The pressure on the Labour government is so huge, sometimes it feels a bit like a second-term government where everyone's a bit tired already. I know the public are. So really try and ensure, like things like improving school standards. Yeah, but, you know, the public mood is what it is, and you have to accept that rather than tell the public they're wrong. But things like the extra appointments, the NHS, the school breakfast clubs, and then the immigration and asylum system to cut the small boats, they're getting on with this kind of painstaking detail. And I'm sure you'll say, oh, well, Peter will always, you know, defend the Labour Party, but this is a kind of delivery phase, and I think we've seen, again, a slightly unsexy, technocratic, Starmerish reshuffle, but they'll be hoping it actually pay for dividends in 12 months.
Peter, can I ask you, do you think that you want to see more obvious working on the illegal crossings crisis? There was some reporting over the weekend, I think former Labour advisors saying, let's have daily Cobra meetings. I mean, to have to say Darren Jones is one of his 3 areas he's looking at is going to be the small boats crisis. And given what you said on Question Time, I know he was often part of that. Is that what that needs to happen? If you had all of government focus on small boats, you'd do much better in the polls, surely.
I think that all government focus can be sensible. We've got to keep a distinction between what happens behind the scenes, where you have a very expensive problem, a problem where people are dying, and the number one public concern that absolutely merits daily attention and daily reporting within government. But at the same time, the spinners and the people craft, you know, the narrative need to kind of explain a bit more that there is going to be slow progress. This is not going to be fixed, you know, in a week or a month. It's not something like the fuel strike. You know, it's going to take years to resolve.
Well, Peter Jones, if you think Darren Jones is the answer, then maybe it's not me that's had too many pina coladas. You've had too many cobras. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, Peter. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, spokesman for Ms Rayner said this: the Deputy Prime Minister paid the correct duty owed on the purchase entirely properly and in line with all relevant requirements. Any suggestion otherwise is entirely without basis. Now, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, is attacking Labour's tax plans.
We need the government to be honest with people. They have been making a lot of noise about black holes. The truth is, they're the ones who created a black hole with their budget last year. They tax businesses who have shed loads of jobs. Unemployment has been rising every single month since Labour came into power. The economy is doing really badly under them, and now they're coming back for more. So we need them to be honest, and that is what the vote on Wednesday is about. Labour telling us exactly what it is they're going to do, but we're the only party that will defend home ownership.
An umbrella statement there from Kemi Badenoch. Seems things are going to get wetter for her too. And this comes as house prices drop ahead of Chancellor Rachel Reeves' plan to tax on the most expensive homes in the upcoming budget. Well, join us now is the chief economist at Nationwide, Robert Gardner. Robert, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. We're seeing a bit of spooking in the house market, it seems. Perhaps there's no small wonder about that. Mansion tax rumours, threats of stamp duty decreasing and capital gains tax on primary residences. Meanwhile, landlords seem to be fleeing the markets due to national insurance hikes. Do you think there's grim times ahead for the housing market?
Well, so far, the picture, to be honest, is one of relative stability. We did see a very small decline in house prices over the month in August. They were down 0.1%, but they're often volatile from month to month. They were up 0.5% the month before. A better measure is probably the annual rate of increase. And their annual house price growth was 2.1% in August, only down a little bit from August when it was 2.4%. So things are fairly steady when it comes to house prices. The rate of house price growth is pretty sluggish by historic standards, but to be honest, that's not really a surprise because affordability is still pretty stretched. If you look at the level of house prices relative to people's incomes, still quite high, and obviously interest rates are a lot higher than they were post-pandemic, and again that's also leading to affordability pressures as well. So it's fairly stable, the picture, and not surprising that we're seeing a more subdued rate of house price growth given where affordability is at the moment.
Robert Gardner, we're still not seeing a huge house building boom. We're going to need plenty more than with immigration, perhaps with Angela Rayner buying 3 of them. We need more houses, don't we?
It would certainly help to bring down affordability over the long run, but to be fair, given any increase in housing stock, it's going to take quite a while for it to have any impact on affordability. But yes, if you look at the UK, we have, as a country, tended to invest less in building homes than many other economies, and over time that does lead to the sorts of things we're seeing now, where affordability is pretty stretched by historical standards and compared to in other countries too.
OK, great. We'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. That's the Chief Economist at Nationwide, Robert Gardner. Just going to get back to the studio. I'd like a quick blast with you, if I could, Chris Hope. Kemi Badenoch there in the rain. And I wonder if this is going to be a metaphor for the coming parliamentary term. Conservatives seem to be out in the rain. No one's really talking about anything there, saying we need to see some action from them too come conference season.
They're trying to move on from their 14 years. Now, I think we're nearly 1 year in. We haven't yet heard Kemi Badenoch address her party conference. That will happen at the start of next month. At the end of next month, Tory MPs can start putting in letters of no confidence. Yes, though, that idea again is going to rear its head through the back end of this year, probably into next May's local elections. But senior Tories tell me they are convinced that she will stand and run. She will stand at the election, of course, and also lead the party into the next election. They think that the voters will see this idea of slowly developing a policy platform is going to work, and they see easy answers from Reform UK, and they're hoping that the voters might give them a second look. But as things stand, they're on 17 points in the polls, Reform on 35 points on the polls, of course, Labour on 20.
Peter Evans, final comment to you. Do you think the Labour Party are delighted that Kemi Badenoch is the current leader of the opposition? They seem to have more or less dismissed her.
She's pretty ineffective, but I've got a lot of sympathy for her personally because I think it is that old adage about being the toughest job. And you could argue 90% of what any leader of the opposition says is irrelevant. When someone's been kicked out of government, the public start to take an interest maybe 6 to 12 months before a general election. It's often said governments lose elections more than oppositions win them. Labour government, their future will be determined on the economy, small boats, NHS waiting lists, and whether they think Kemi Badenoch is serious. But a lot of people in her shadow cabinet will never be heard of again.
Okay. Peter, just very briefly, your party's on 20 points, Tories 17 points, Reform 35 points. Why are you doing so badly after 1 year?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think and you've heard it all before, but it's always worth saying, really tough economic inheritance. But I think small boats is taking longer than they hoped to get on top of. The economy is not going quickly enough. The things they're doing really well, like school breakfast clubs, NHS, extra appointments, are taking a while to kick in. And, yeah, listening, but there is not really a clear narrative about what is Starmerism.
Indeed. What is Starmerism? There's one to mull over. Peter, Chris, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Now, still to come on today's show.
£1.7 billion project in limbo. The A5 connects Northern Ireland from Londonderry through Omagh to Ballygawley.
It's a road to nowhere. Anger among locals as the major motorway projects Northern Ireland has put on hold over net zero concerns. Plus, a shocking revelation about Queen Camilla as a new book claims that the royal fought off an attempted incident assault as indecent assault. As a teenager, she deployed a high heel into a man's gentleman parts. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Approaching 3:28, you with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Reform UK have revealed their plans to save taxpayers billions of pounds, they claim, as they look to overhaul council-controlled pension funds.
The size of these pension funds, the numbers are enormous. Our 13 councils alone, you're looking to March 24, which is the last audited numbers, about £66 billion. What is that? It's bigger than our annual defence budget, just in 13 councils. Across the whole of the local government pension scheme, it's over £400 billion.
And this comes as the party has stormed to a 15-point lead over Labour, with 35% of people saying they would vote for Nigel Farage's party if there was an election tomorrow. Let's cross now to our political correspondent, Olivia Uttley, who's been at the conference and joins me in the studio. Olivia, pension schemes are quite unsexy to talk about. But let's be honest, in essence, what I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were there, Mr Tice is saying is that public sector pension, everyone puts their money in, it's invested into a portfolio, but they don't invest in things that make the most money, they invest into woke things, and they don't make enough money. He's saying with the right investment, they can make a load more money. Is that the essence of it?
Oh, I think that's a very, very good summary, Martin. That's basically what Richard Tice was saying today. I think you're right to say, you know, it is a pretty unsexy topic, and yet the room was packed full of journalists listening to this announcement from Richard Tice. Even though it's the first day back in Parliament, the Home Secretary is giving a big speech this afternoon. I think it just goes to show what a huge force Reform UK are now in UK politics. People are really, really interested in every word they have to say. Now, as you mentioned there, essentially, Richard Tice was saying that these pension funds, local government pension funds specifically, council pension funds, are investing the money into net zero friendly companies.
Woke projects.
Woke projects, if you like. And in some cases, those companies aren't actually making the sort of profit that they should be making. And so these pension funds aren't doing as well as they should be doing. And what Richard Tice is saying is under reform, these pensions would be invested in a different way. So it's not saying that he would cut local government pensions, nothing like that. Not saying he would cut anyone's benefits at this point, but that these pension funds would become more efficient. Now, then there was a bit of a sleight of hand from Richard Tice, it has to be said, because he said that this could save up to each family up to £350 a year in council tax. Yep. Then in the next breath, he said that if these pensions were invested more sensibly, they could make lots more money, and that money could be used to fund social care. Well, which is it? Is this extra money going to fund social care, or are those savings going to be passed on to the council taxpayer? I asked him about that, and what he said was that each council would be able to make up their own minds. But I don't think reform could sort of have it both ways. He was also asked, I thought it was a really interesting question from The Times, about this funding for SEND pupils, so pupils who have some sort of disability, learning disability, etc. At the moment, they are given free transport to school off the back of paid for with council tax. Now, Labour has done a white paper on all of this to find out how that money is being used, because there is a suggestion that it's being wasteful. Well, Richard Tice went much, much further than Labour. He said what's happening is that some parents who just don't want to get up in the morning are taking advantage of this scheme and getting this free taxi service to school while claiming that their child has mild autism or whatever. So I think this is going to be a really big issue for both the Labour Party and for Reform. There are quite sort of journalists nodding their heads in the room, so it'd be fascinating to see how that goes down with the public as well.
Peter Edwards, let's get a quick comment from you. Fair to say that one of the biggest problems that Keir Starmer faced in the last term, at least, was this backbench rebellion on any form of cutbacks on benefits. None at all, no wiggle room there. And Richard Tice already talking about making those kind of Doge-style cuts, and also looking at public pension pots. Public pension pots are a huge concern, they're a huge cost, and why should the average British taxpayer pay for people in the public sector to get a gold-plated pension?
Well, they're not gold-plated these days because the final salary schemes are dying off. I mean, what Richard Tice announced is an absolute nonsense. I used to read these local authority pension fund reports when I was a financial journalist on the Yorkshire Post. They're very large schemes. Could you think about most former local government staff will have opted in before auto-enrolment, and they're paid up to the point of death. And, you know, whether you call it DEI or woke or just things that are environmentally friendly, the proportion...
But they don't make very good money.
The proportion that is targeted there...
British Petroleum makes a lot of money. Rolls-Royce makes a lot of money. British companies.
Yeah, but they're largely invested in things like BP, and the proportion that goes on kind of environmental initiatives is absolutely minimal. And I say that because I've read these reports. They do go on unit trusts, they go on bank shares, they go on oil shares, they go on energy shares, because these are the largest, and they probably these days go on Google and Amazon and Facebook shares. The idea that investment managers are not pursuing best return to target woke initiatives is a nonsense. And then it's another leap of nonsense to suggest that leads to savings to the taxpayer. Donald Trump simply raises an eyebrow, it will move markets by a much greater extent than anything Reform announced today.
Beautiful. Well, reading those pension reports, the long winter evenings must fly by. Peter Edwards, thank you very, very much for joining us And Olivia Utley, great to have you back regularly on the channel. Thank you very, very much both for joining us. Now, coming up, lots more to come between now and 4 o'clock. Of course, we're expecting to hear from Yvette Cooper in Parliament in a desperate attempt to shore up the illegal immigration crisis. During today's show, Yvette Cooper will announce a raft of new plans, but will they be enough? But first, it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom at 33 minutes past 3. Sir Keir Starmer is throwing his full support behind Angela Rayner. He says she is a great story of British success amid Tory demands for an ethics probe into her tax affairs. He says, though, critics are making a mistake by briefing against the Deputy Prime Minister. He also says he wants asylum hotels emptied sooner than 2029, accusing Nigel Farage of peddling fanciful ideas. It comes as the Home Secretary is set to promise the biggest shake-up of Britain's borders in years. Tougher language rules, faster removals and a crackdown on smugglers. In Europe, Ursula von der Leyen's plane was forced to land in Bulgaria using paper maps after suspected Russian GPS jamming. Brussels has called it a blatant interference. Disaster in Afghanistan. More than 800 people are confirmed dead after a powerful earthquake flattened villages across 4 provinces. Thousands are feared injured and rescuers are struggling to reach remote areas. Tributes are being paid to heavyweight boxer Joe Bugner, the only man to go the distance with both Ali and Fraser. He died at the age of 75. And Queen Camilla has revealed she once fought off an attempted assault as a teenager, striking her attacker with a shoe on a train. She's since vowed to keep trying to end sexual violence. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 4.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The unsettled weather continues as we go through the next few days. Plenty of showers still to come, even some longer spells of rain. It's all because there's an area of low pressure, quite a mature, deep low pressure, just to the northwest of the UK, driving the fairly unsettled weather that we have at the moment. There will still be quite a few showers to come as we go through the rest of today. They are going to start to ease and clear away as we go overnight for many places, albeit towards the northwest of Scotland. Frequent showers continuing here, and down the western side of England and Wales, a few showers as well overnight. Other places, though, having a good deal of dry and at times clear weather. Under the clear skies, temperatures could drop into single figures, particularly away from the towns and cities. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, well, it's a showery start to the day across parts of Scotland, particularly across the west. This is where we're going to have the heaviest, most frequent showers and the greatest chance of thunder as we go through the day. A brighter start across eastern Scotland, but showers arriving here later on. A mostly dry start for Northern Ireland, but a few showers trying to push their way in, and then showers for western parts of England and Wales, and a more persistent spell of rain pushing into parts of the southwest. Now, this feature is going to make its way eastwards across southern counties as we go through the day tomorrow, and it could be quite heavy at times. There could even be some rumbles of thunder mixed in with it. Elsewhere, a fair few showers to watch out for. These showers becoming a bit more widespread as we go through the day, but perhaps not quite as intense, not as thundery as those that we've seen through today. There will be some sunshine in between the showers, and in that sunshine, temperatures just about getting into the high teens or low 20s for some of us. Later on, the more persistent rain in the south fringes its way into parts of East Anglia before clearing away, and elsewhere we will see the showers starting to fizzle out. But there's more wet and blustery weather to come as we go through Wednesday. For many of us, it does look like a very unsettled day indeed. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M73 Junction 2A off-slip remains inaccessible to northbound traffic due to planned maintenance. Drivers should follow the diversion routes and anticipate extended travel times. In Surrey on the M3 eastbound, there is a broken down vehicle positioned between Junction 3 and Junction 2, resulting in 1 out of 4 lanes being temporarily unavailable. And on the trains, Southeastern is experiencing major disruption between Gravesend and Rainham in Kent, as well as Faversham. Additionally, there are disturbances on the London Overground route between Willesden Junction and Clapham Junction. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Queen Camilla has revealed that she once fought off a man who attacked her on a train while she was a mere teenager. And the revelation is in a new book, and it's called Power and the Palace by Valentine Lowe, and claims that the incident happened when she was around 16 or 17 years old, and while she was then travelling on a train towards Paddington. Well, we can now speak with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, I'm delighted you've stuck around to give us comments on this after appearing for 3 hours on Good Afternoon Britain. Thank you for being the consummate professional. And I've got to say, when I read this story earlier on, I thought all power to the young, up-and-coming, then Queen in waiting. She dealt with this assailant swiftly and effectively in the place where we all know hurts the most.
Well, quite exactly, Martin. Yeah, good to be with you. So this revelation wasn't really from her talking to the press at all, actually. She spoke to Boris Johnson, who was then Mayor of London in 2008, and then one of his staff members decided to tell the journalist Valentine Lowe for his book, which has been serialised in the Times this morning. When I went to the palace, it wasn't denied, which suggests it is probably true. So what happened was, when the Queen was a teenager in the late 1960s, she was on the train to London Paddington, and a man attempted to grope her, and she did what her mother taught her. She took off her high heel shoe and then hit him straight where it hurt probably the most and ran off. And then when the train pulled into Paddington, she told a uniformed police officer who was actually around on the platform, and then the guy was arrested off the back of all of that. And I think the reason why the Queen is happy for this to be in the public domain and happy for us to be talking about it now, because of course there are quite strict rules about the Queen not being sorry, Martin, I'm going to have to hand back to you, I'm told.
I have to cut across you because we have to go to Westminster, where the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper is addressing the Commons. Thank you, Cameron.
Opened many hundreds of asylum hotels across the country, while returns were a third lower than in 2010. And before leaving office, they deliberately cut asylum decision-making by 70%, leaving a steeply rising backlog behind. It is little wonder that people right across the country lost confidence in the system and demanded to know why they were paying the price of a system that was so out of control. But that does not mean that people rejected the long and proud history of Britain doing our bit to help those fleeing persecution or conflict, including in the past decade families from Ukraine, Syria and Hong Kong. Because it is the British way to do our bit alongside other countries to help those who need sanctuary. But the system has to be controlled and managed, based on fair and properly enforced rules, not chaos and exploitation driven by criminal smuggler gangs. And it is exactly because of our important tradition that substantial reforms are needed now. In our first year in government, we've taken immediate action, laying the foundations for more fundamental reform. We have restored asylum decision-making and then rapidly increased the rate of decisions. Had we continued with the previous government's freeze on asylum decisions, thousands more people would have been in hotels and asylum accommodation by now. Instead, we removed 35,000 people with no right to be here, including a 28% increase in returns of failed asylum seekers and a 14% increase in removals of foreign criminals. We've increased raids and arrests on illegal working by 50%, and we cut the annual hotel bill by almost £1 billion in the last financial year. We are rolling out digital ID and biometric kits so immigration enforcement can check on the spot whether someone has a right to work or a right to be in the UK. And on channel crossings and organised immigration crime, we are putting in place new powers, new structures and new international agreements to help dismantle the criminal industry behind the boats. So I want to update the House on the further steps we're now taking. In August, I signed the new treaty with France, allowing us for the first time to directly return those who arrive on small boats. The first detentions took place the next day of people immediately on arrival in Dover, and we expect the first returns to begin later this month. Applications have also been opened for the reciprocal legal route, with the first cases under consideration, subject to strict security checks. We've made clear this is a pilot scheme, but the more we prove the concept at the outset, the better we will be able to develop and grow it. But the principles it embodies are crucial, because no one should be making these dangerous or illegal journeys on small boats, and if they do, we want to see them swiftly returned. But in return, we believe in doing our bit alongside other countries to help those who have fled persecution through managed and controlled legal programmes. This summer, we've also taken further action to strengthen enforcement against smuggling gangs. France has reviewed its maritime approach to allow for the interception of taxi boats in French waters, and we will continue to work with them to implement this change as soon as possible. In the last year, the National Crime Agency has led 347 disruptions of immigration crime networks, their highest level on record, and a 40% increase in a year. Over the summer, we announced a £100 million uplift in funding for border security and up to 300 more personnel in the National Crime Agency focusing on targeting the smuggler gangs. And the border security bill will give them stronger powers, counter-terrorism powers against smuggler gangs, powers to seize and download mobile phones of small boat arrivals, and the power to ban sex offenders from the asylum system altogether. Mr. Speaker, if opposition parties work with us to speed passage through the other place instead of opposing the bill, those powers could be in place within months, making our country safer and more secure. We turn now to the major reforms that are needed to fix the broken asylum system that we inherited. Although we have increased decision-making and increased returns, the overall system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system and to boost our border security, tackling the pull factors, strengthening enforcement, making sure people are treated fairly, reforming the way that the ECHR is interpreted here at home, speeding up the system, cutting numbers and ending the use of hotels, and developing controlled and managed routes for genuine refugees. At the heart of these reforms will be a complete overhaul of the appeals system, the biggest obstacle to reducing the size of the asylum system and to ending hotel use. Because tens of thousands of people in asylum accommodation are currently waiting for appeals, and under the current system that figure is to grow, with an average wait time already of 54 weeks. So we have already funded thousands of additional sitting days this year, and the Border Security Bill will introduce a statutory timeframe of 24 weeks, but we need to go further. So we will introduce a new independent body to deal with immigration and asylum appeals, fully independent of government, staffed by professionally trained adjudicators with safeguards to ensure high standards, but able to surge capacity as needed to accelerate and prioritise cases, alongside new procedures to tackle repeat applications and unnecessary delays. We're also increasing detention and returns capacity, including a 1,000-bed expansion at Campsfield and Haslar, with the first tranche of additional beds coming online within months to support many thousands more in forced removals each year. And our reforms will also address the overly complex system for family migration, including changes to the way that Article 8 of the ECHR is interpreted. We should be clear, international law is important. It is because other countries know that we abide by it that we have been able to make these new agreements with France to return people who arrive on small boats, to make new agreements with Germany to stop the warehousing of small boats by criminal gangs, and to explore returns hubs partnerships with other European countries. But we also need the interpretation of international law to keep up with the realities and challenges of today's world. But there is one area where we also need to make more immediate challenges. The current rules for family reunion for refugees were designed many years ago to help families separated by war, conflict and persecution. But the way they are now being used has changed. Even just before the pandemic, refugees who applied to bring family to the UK did so on average more than 1 or 2 years after they had been granted protection, long enough for them to be able to get jobs or find housing or be able to provide their family with some support. In Denmark and Switzerland, currently those granted humanitarian protection are not able to apply to bring family for at least 2 years after protection has been granted. But here in the UK now, however, those applications come in on average in around a month after protection has been granted, often even before a newly granted refugee has left asylum accommodation. As a consequence, refugee families who arrive are far more likely to be seeking homelessness assistance. And some councils are finding that more than a quarter of their family homelessness applications are linked to refugee family reunion. That is not sustainable. Currently, there are also no conditions on family reunion for refugee sponsors, unlike those in place if the sponsor is a British citizen or a long-term UK resident, and that is not fair. Finally, the proportion of migrants who have arrived on small boats and who then apply to bring family has also increased sharply in recent years, with signs that smuggler gangs are now able to use the promise of family reunion to promote dangerous journeys to the UK. Mr. Speaker, we continue to believe that families staying together is important, and it's why we will seek to prioritise family groups among the applicants to come to Britain under our new deal with France. But reforms are needed. So in our asylum policy statement later this year, we will set out a new system for family migration, including looking at contribution requirements, longer periods before newly granted refugees can apply, and dedicated controlled arrangements for unaccompanied children and for those fleeing persecution who have family in the UK. And we aim to have some of those changes in place for the spring. But in the meantime, we do need to address the immediate pressures on local authorities and the risks from criminal gangs using family reunion as a pull factor to encourage more people onto dangerous boats. Therefore, we are bringing forward new immigration rules this week to temporarily suspend new applications under the existing dedicated refugee family reunion route. Until the new framework is introduced, refugees will be covered by the same family migration rules and conditions as everyone else. Mr. Speaker, let me turn next to the action we're taking to ensure that every asylum hotel will be closed for good under this government. Not just by shifting individuals from hotels to other sites, but by driving down the numbers in supported accommodation overall. And not in a chaotic way through piecemeal court judgments, but through a controlled, managed and orderly programme, driving down inflow into the asylum system, clearing the appeals backlog, which is crucial, and continuing to increase returns. Within the asylum estate, we are reconfiguring sites, increasing room sharing, tightening the test for accommodation and working at pace to identify alternative, cheaper and more appropriate accommodation with other government departments and with local authorities. And we're increasing standards and security and joint public safety cooperation between the police, accommodation providers and the Home Office to ensure that laws and rules are enforced. Mr. Speaker, I understand and agree with local councils and communities who want the asylum hotels in their communities closed, because we need to close all asylum hotels and we need to do so for good. But that must be done in a controlled and orderly manner and not through a return to the previous government's chaos that led to the opening of hotels in the first place. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me update the House on the continued legal and controlled support that we will provide for those facing conflict and persecution. We will continue to do our bit to support Ukraine, extending the Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme by a further 24 months, with further details to be set out in due course. We're also taking immediate action to rescue children who have been seriously injured in the horrendous onslaught on civilians in Gaza so they can get the health treatment they need. And the Foreign Secretary will update the House shortly on the progress to get those children out. I can confirm that the Home Office has put in place systems to issue expedited visas with biometric checks conducted prior to arrival for children and their immediate accompanying family members. And we have done the same for all the Chevening scholars and are in the process of doing so now for the next group of students from Gaza who have been awarded fully funded scholarships and places at UK universities so they can start their studies in autumn this year. And later this year, we will set out plans to establish a permanent framework for refugee students to come study in the UK so we can help more talented young people fleeing war and persecution to find a better future, alongside capped and managed ways for refugees to work here in the UK. Mr. Speaker, this government is determined to fix every aspect of the broken system we inherited and to restore the confidence of the British people. Solving problems, not exploiting them. A serious and comprehensive plan, not fantasy claims based on sums that don't add up or gimmicks that failed in the past. What we will never do is seek to stir up chaos, division or hate, because that is not who we are as a country, and that is not what Britain stands for. A practical plan to strengthen our border security, to fix the asylum chaos and to rebuild confidence in an asylum and immigration system that serves our national interest, protects our national security and reflects our national values. Because when we wave the Union flag, when we wave the St George's flag, when we sing God Save the King and celebrate everything that is great about Britain and about our country, we do so with pride because of the values that our flags, our king and our country represent. Togetherness, fairness and decency, respect for each other, respect for the rule of law. That is what our country stands for. That is the British way to fix the problems we face, and I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Criswell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of her statement. The government has now been in office for well over a year. And I think, listen, and I think it's fair to say not even their kindest friends would say they think it has gone very well. But listening to her statement, it sounds like she thinks everything is fine, and if there are any problems, it's all somehow somebody else's fault. Is she living in a parallel universe? After over a year in office, she must now take responsibility for what is happening under this government. Now, it's very interesting during her statement, Mr. Speaker, to notice she did not mention her favourite phrase from a year or so ago, that she was going to smash the gangs. I wonder why she was so silent on her previously favourite catchphrase. Well, the answer is it's not going very well. Now, she mentions National Crime Agency disruptions. Let me gently point out that 84% of those National Crime Agency disruptions that she cited a few minutes ago are classified as not being high impact. And if we look at National Crime Agency arrests for organised immigration crime, they actually went down by 16% in the last financial year, hardly smashing the gangs. And in fact, the NCA's arrests for organised immigration crime in that financial year were only 26, a drop in the ocean compared to the tens of thousands crossing the Channel. Now, Mr. Speaker, it was also rather conspicuous that the Home Secretary did not mention at all, not even a word, about the numbers illegally crossing the English Channel. Now, I wonder why that was. I wonder why she forgot to say a single word about that. Well, the reason, I'm afraid, is pretty clear. Because far from smashing the gangs, so far this year, 29,000, to be precise, 29,003 illegal immigrants have crossed the English Channel. That is the worst year in history, and it is up by 38% compared to last year. That is not success, it is failure. Things are not getting any better, they are getting worse. This government is failing, and everyone can see it. That is why there are protests up and down the country, and where those protests are peaceful, I support them. That is why, this is a shocking figure, 75%, let this sink in, 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration and asylum badly. 75%. Now let me turn to hotels. Now, in the 9 months before the last general election, 200 hotels were closed down, including the Bell Hotel in Epping. But since 200 hotels closed down, but since the election, the numbers in asylum hotels have actually gone up by 8%. Now, had that previous trend of closures continued, today there would be no asylum hotels open at all. But I asked the Home Secretary to confirm this. Will she confirm that she will not reduce hotel usage simply by shunting asylum seekers from hotels and into flats and HMOs, which are desperately needed by young people? Will she give the House that categoric assurance? Now, Mr. Speaker, last week, the Home Secretary's lawyers said that the rights of illegal immigrants are more important than the rights of local people in places like Epping. And when this was expressly put in those terms to the Education Secretary yesterday on the Trevor Phillips programme, in those words, she shamefully agreed. Those statements are a disgrace. Does the Home Secretary realise how angry that makes people feel? It speaks of a government not on the side of the people in this country. It means the government appears to care more about the rights of illegal immigrants than our own citizens. So will she apologise for what her lawyers and the Education Secretary said? And will she undertake that ministers and their lawyers will never say that again? Now, Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary talks about her returns deal with France. Now, it has been reported that it will only return about 50 people a week, amounting to 6% of arrivals. Does she accept that allowing 94% of illegal arrivals to stay will act as no deterrent at all? Does she accept that? And if she doesn't accept this figure of 50 a week, will she tell the House exactly how many immigrants crossing the Channel will in fact be returned under her deal? Now, she may recall that back in July, we were told by the government that the first returns would happen within weeks. That was back in July. Will she confirm to the House that the number who have actually been returned so far is precisely 0? Now, she also said to the House a couple of minutes ago that there would be security checks on those people reciprocally taken from France into the UK. But will she confirm that her agreement with France expressly says the French government will not provide the UK government with any information at all, any personal data about those migrants? So if there are criminal convictions, if there are suspicions about extremism or terrorism, the French government will not provide information to us. And if that is true, as her agreement says, how can she possibly conduct security checks? Now, Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary talked about tweaks to family visa rules. Let me be clear about the opposition's position on this. If someone enters this country illegally, they should not be allowed to bring in any family members. In fact, everybody entering this country illegally should be immediately removed to their country of origin, if possible, and if not possible, to a safe third country such as Rwanda, a scheme which she cancelled just days before it was due to start. The public expects that approach. The public expects that approach, an approach which she cancelled, because the numbers crossing the Channel so far this year have been the worst ever, the worst in history. And it's not just the numbers are high. Hundreds of migrants having crossed, living in those hotels, have been charged with criminal offences, including sexual assaults on girls as young as 8 years old and multiple rapes. This is not just a border security crisis, it is a public safety crisis as well, and people up and down this country are furious. That is why they are protesting, and that is why 75% of the public think this government is failing on asylum and immigration. Now, if this government were serious about fixing this problem, they would know that little tweaks here and there are not enough. Tweaks to Article 8 are not going to be enough. Tweaking the family reunion rules are not enough. Returning, maybe if we're lucky, 50 people a week to France is not going to be enough. Maybe intercepting a few boats, worthy though that is, it is not going to be enough. The only way these crossings will stop, the only way we're going to get control of our borders back, is if everybody crossing the Channel knows they will get returned. Now, we tabled a bill to do that in Parliament a few weeks ago. We had a plan to do that, the Rwanda bill. We need to go further by disapplying the Human Rights Act, not just tinkering with Article 8, disapplying the entire Human Rights Act from immigration matters. If the government was serious, that is what they will do. So I have one last question for the Home Secretary. If she really wants to control our borders, if she really wants to get down the record numbers that have been crossing on her watch, she would back our plan, she would disapply the Human Rights Act in its entirety from immigration matters, and she would ensure that every single person crossing the Channel was immediately removed.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I do worry about the Shadow Home Secretary's amnesia. And the 14 years that his party was in government, in which they never managed to do any of the fantasy things that he claims. So coming back to the reality rather than the fantasy rhetoric that he said, he talked about the approach that his previous government was taking before the election. So it's worth reminding the House of what that approach was. Asylum decisions dropped by 70%. They effectively had a freeze on taking asylum decisions, and they were returning those asylum seekers nowhere. Not to France, not to the safe countries that people had passed through, not to Rwanda, despite running the scheme for more than 2 years. Only 4 volunteers went at a cost of £700 million. Their approach left us with a backlog that was soaring. And had we continued with that totally failed approach, not taking asylum decisions, not returning people anywhere, there would have been tens of thousands more people in asylum accommodation, in asylum hotels across the country right now. That is the kind of chaos that his policies were heading towards, and that is the kind of chaos that he is promising again now. The House will remember his personal record, obviously, where small boat arrivals went up tenfold on his watch when he was an immigration minister, and where the less than 1,000 asylum seekers were in hotels by the time he became immigration minister, more than 20,000 by the time that he left. And his new concern for local councils, well, he was the immigration minister who actually wrote to local authorities to tell them he was stopping the requirement for local authorities to agree to accommodation, saying, I have instead authorised providers to identify any suitable properties that they consider appropriate. So, Mr. Speaker, we agree with communities across the country that asylum hotels must all close. And I understand too why councils individually want to take action in their area. But I would say to the Shadow Home Secretary, a party that wants to be in government should have a proper plan for the whole country, not just promote a chaotic approach that ends up making it worse in lots of areas. But that actually is their record. The reason that we have asylum hotels in the first place is because they did no planning, they let Manston chaos get out of control, and both the Shadow Justice Minister, when he was Immigration Minister, as well as the Shadow Home Secretary, rushed around the country opening hotels instead of taking a practical, steady approach that gets to the heart of the problem, that reduces the asylum system, that strengthens our border security, and tackles and reforms the appeals that are causing the huge delays now. And as the final point, Mr. Speaker, this government strongly believes that sex offenders should be banned from the asylum system altogether. That is why we have put those details into the Border Security Bill, a bill that his party has voted against time and again, is still resisting in the House of Lords, a
a bill which, if opposition parties supported us and worked with us, we could have that law on the statute book. We could have those stronger powers against sex offenders. We could have the stronger powers on counter-terrorism powers to go after criminal gangs. We could have the stronger powers in place to tackle the offences that are being committed in the Channel and across the country as well. The trouble is, what the party opposite is doing in opposition is actually an even worse version of what they did in government, ramping up the rhetoric with policies that would just make the chaos worse. This government will fix the chaos that we inherited and strengthen our border security for the sake of the whole country.
Judy Gosling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks, Secretary of State, for everything which...
Welcome back to GB News. It is 8 minutes after 4. That was the Home Secretary there, Yvette Cooper, laying out beefed up new plans to deal with the illegal immigration crisis. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, responding. I'm joined in the studio by Olivia Utley, our political correspondent. I'll just give you a quick summary of what I thought were the main points that leapt out there from Miss Cooper's statements. Two big takeaways, really. The first one being new rules this week to suspend the current family asylum system, which is being, in her words, quotes, exploited by criminal gangs. This is the absurd situation, whereas anybody claiming asylum in the United Kingdom can uniquely, within the European Union bloc, the bloc of Europe, allow all of their family members to suddenly come to Britain to claim immediate benefits, to appear on housing lists. Miss Cooper there was adamant. Astonishing figures. Currently, in some council areas, more than a quarter of all council homes, more than a quarter of all council housing stocks in some areas are presently used for asylum seekers. And we've been told repeatedly it was fantasy to say Brits were put at the back of the queue. Clear admission there, that is not the case. This week, those rules will be suspended with a view to later in the year redrafting them all together to end this absurd loophole. Second point I thought was very, very interesting was the current rescue mission of children from Gaza, something which has been hugely contentious. A lot of people believe it will be a mistake altogether to allow any Palestinian refugees into the country. Why do no Arabian states take them, for example? But Ms Cooper set out it would be possible to biometrically age those children, something we were told repeatedly was inhumane, impossible for asylum seekers because it would be invasive. Suddenly it can be done. It can be done, but only on Gazan children and their immediate family members. Olivia Utley, then Chris Philp, took to his haunches and laid out what he believed was the parallel universe that Yvette Cooper was living in, talking about the fact actually arrests by the National Crime Agency were down 16% to just 26. So far this year, over 29,000 illegal immigrants have entered this country. The worst year in history, a plus 38% increase. And yet, of course, when Miss Cooper was allowed to reply, she said, in 14 years in power, you never managed any of the fantasy rhetoric that you just mentioned in your entire speech. A political tit-for-tat, once again. Olivia Utley, is there anything of substance in there which you think can tackle the illegal immigration crisis?
Well, there was one proper announcement there from Yvette Cooper. A lot of it is just rehashed stuff that we've heard from the government before. We already knew about the one-in, one-out policy, etc. But this plan that she's talked about bringing in this week to suspend this very strange loophole in the law whereby the only people who can bring their family members over to the UK are asylum applicants who've had their claims accepted. Obviously, that is a huge incentive for people who want to cross the Channel. They think they can come to Britain and bring their family members over. Now, remember that just 2 years ago, the Conservative government brought in a policy whereby Brits, people who are born, raised in the UK with British parents, are only allowed to bring their spouses over to the UK, their foreign spouses over to the UK, if they are earning £29,000. Of course, it is a pretty bizarre situation that the same does not hold true for asylum seekers. Yvette Cooper is closing that loophole. We then heard that little, as you call it, tit for tat with Chris Philp. Now, what's really tricky for the Conservatives is they can say that these are all tweaks, fiddling around the edges, as Chris Philp did say, that he said that there needs to be a much more radical change to the asylum policy, and he laid out what the Conservatives would do. It's essentially Rwanda, the policy which they tried to introduce a few times. But Yvette Cooper can obviously come back and say, well, it's been 14 years, you didn't do anything about it. Now, obviously, as far as I can see, what the Shadow Home Secretary wants to say is, well, things will be different this time because the Conservatives are willing to leave the European Court of Human Rights. And let's remember that Rwanda was never able to get off the ground because of those ECHR rulings.
If I may interject, and you and I were saying this during that press conference, we were pulling our hair out, as no doubt a lot of Conservative voters and members will be. Why don't they just say it now? Why don't they just say, we will leave the European Convention on Human Rights? Why are they waiting until conference season? Nigel Farage is completely stealing the rhetoric.
Well, it's a total mystery, really, because as you sort of alluded to there, it sounds pretty clear that when it comes to party conference in about a month's time, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, will stand up and say it's the Conservatives' view that Britain should leave the ECHR. Why has she not said that sooner? Because this is now a pretty mainstream position. We have people like David Blunkett, former, Labour grandee, saying that it's time for Britain to leave the ECHR. You're hearing Jack Straw saying that the ECHR rules should be disapplied. If the Conservatives were willing to say that right now, Chris Philp would have a much, much stronger line than he does. As it is, Yvette Cooper is able to just come back to him and say, well, how's it going to be any different than when you were in power last time, if you were in power again? So it's a really awkward position that the Conservatives find themselves in. This is a pretty meaty announcement from Yvette Cooper, and perhaps if she'd made it before the summer, it would have changed things. But now it feels as though the narrative has just got too far out of the government's control. We are seeing, almost civil unrest. I don't want to be too extreme about it, but there are these protests every week. It doesn't look like they're going away anytime soon, and it now almost feels that anything the government says won't go far enough. We've seen this huge climb in support for reform in recent weeks. Yvette Cooper is working hard to catch up now, but it does feel like too little too late in terms of just the politics and optics of it.
I think you're right, and we were also alluding to the fact during that speech there's so much detail, but I wonder if people are just tired of detail, or they don't believe politicians anymore when they say they will do things. And something that really leapt out as well from Yvette Cooper, she talked about waving union flags and St George's flags, and straight away you and I both kind of got on our haunches. When we wave the Union flag and when we wave the St George's flag, she said, we do so in unified pride and decency. We do it kindly. And I think that was a clear reference to those waving flags outside asylum hotels and her casting her disapproval at that. And I think there's a huge conversation to be had about flags and patriotism and nation state. And I think once again today, Labour Party tone deaf on this. People aren't waving their flags because they're being hateful. They're waving their flags, I believe, because they feel their country is disappearing before their eyes, and to infer that the use of the St George's flag and the Union flag as something which is distasteful, I think once again is tone deaf.
I think it's really, really difficult for the Labour government, this, because they want to show that they are sort of patriotic. I remember a few years ago, Emily Thornberry was seen sneering at white van men who have flags flying outside their house, and it was essentially the end of her political career. Labour ministers know they can't make that mistake. They can't sneer at these flag wavers, but they also don't want to suggest that they are on the side of the people waving flags outside migrant hotels, because they are afraid that their own left-wing MPs will start to rebel against them. So Yvette Cooper there was trying to tread a really, really thin line of suggesting that she herself would happily wave a St George's flag. I can't quite picture it, to be honest, but perhaps Keir Starmer's apparently claiming he's got a St George's flag in his flat. Again, interesting. So she's trying to tread this very thin line of saying we are proud of our country, we are patriotic, we are prepared to wave flags, but we're doing it in a bit of a different way. And I'm not sure how long that line is going to work. I think lots of people in Epping and other places are going to think, no, hang on a minute, I want to know, is it the government with me or against me?
Olivia Otley, excellent as ever. Thank you very much. Please stick around. Let's just recap a little bit now on the Home Secretary's statement from Yvette Cooper, because she says that under new reforms, Labour will end the use of those asylum hotels.
The overall system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system and to boost our border security, tackling the pull factors, strengthening enforcement, making sure people are treated fairly, reforming the way that the ECHR is interpreted here at home, speeding up the system, cutting numbers and ending the use of hotels.
Now, it's very interesting during her statement, Mr. Speaker, to notice she did not mention her favourite phrase from a year or so ago, that she was going to smash the gangs. I wonder why she was so silent on her previously favourite catchphrase. Things are not getting any better, they are getting worse. This government is failing, and everyone can see it. That is why there are protests up and down the country. And where those protests are peaceful, I support them. That is why, this is a shocking figure, 75%, let this sink in, 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration and asylum badly.
There we go. 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration badly. Perhaps one of them is our next guest. Let's speak with the human rights lawyer, David Hay. David, always a pleasure to have your esteemed company on the show, my friend. Welcome back. I wanted to get your opinion on one detail that Ms Cooper mentioned in that statement in Parliament a short while ago. There'll be changes to how Article 8 is implemented. Article 8, of course, the bugbear of those trying to apply strict deportation rules. Article 8, the right to a human life, human rights to a family life. Article 8, which means we can't deport people who join terrorist organisations. We can't deport people who claim they're gay. We can't deport people who claim they're Christian. We can't deport people who don't like chicken nuggets in Albania. Are you convinced that tweaking is enough, or do you need to do something much more dramatic?
Good afternoon, Martin. Well, I think, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was the one big takeaway I got from this, when at the beginning of the statement she mentioned, Article 8, and obviously later on mentioned in general the ECHR and the way it was interpreted. I mean, if you remember, I think it was back in March, I think it was, that they said that the government said they are looking at the interpretation of Article 8 in the ECHR and addressing that, and obviously that, they spent several months doing that, and now they've announced that they're going to change that. I think other than coming out of the ECHR, the only real way to address all of these problems that you've just mentioned is the interpretation of Article 8, because that is one of the ones that causes all the problems. So how are they going to interpret that and change interpretation? Well, we're going to see that. Obviously, she's kind of kicked the ball off a few months on that one, so we're not going to see any changes immediately. But I think that statement that they're going to change the interpretation is a very important one.
But the problem with interpretation, it can be interpreted in different ways. You may interpret that law in one way, but a human rights lawyer who's very raison d'etre is to ensure their clients remain within our borders can interpret it in a very different way. And the difference of interpretation could take months, if not years, to bog down in claims and counterclaims, David Hay.
I think you had it when you said years. I mean, I think, if the government, let's say, if we go through the process, the government brings in a new law to change the way we interpret the ECHR Article 8. Obviously, that new law is going to be challenged by lawyers again. Those challenges can take months or years. So I think, lots and lots of promises here. Whether or not they're empty ones, will come to see that. Whether or not they'll have any immediate impact, I doubt it very much, because any changes to laws will get dragged through court. That will take a long time. But I think, one thing to take away from this as well is the fact that it's the first day back for the government, and the first big statement they make is on asylum and immigration. So they clearly know how important this is. Probably more in a panic because of reforms, advancing in the polls. But I think, you're seeing some clear focus on this. But whether or not we'll see any changes, I doubt that very much at the moment.
And David Hay, may I get your expert opinion as well on another standout announcement, and that is, frankly, a lot of people would just be flabbergasted that at the moment anybody who claims asylum in the UK can immediately invite all their family members from wherever in the world, who immediately get benefits. They don't have to speak English. And we just heard there, we've been told repeatedly it was a fantasy to say that Brits were forced down the pecking order in things like council housing lists, and yet we hear from the Home Secretary herself today, in some areas, an astonishing 24% of all council house places are now asylum seekers and their families. And yet we're told this week, that would be clamped down upon. Again, can the government clamp down on laws willy-nilly like that, or will there again be a legal challenge to that, do you think?
I think on that one, on the addressing the bringing family of basically once people get refugee status, bringing their family over relatively easily, I think that one will be a lot easier to address because that's not something that's kind of enshrined in law. It's more the interpretation of the Refugee Convention. Other countries around the world don't make it that easy, and that is one of the areas. And I think it was Olivia and I think earlier Christopher Hope mentioned it, where there was, for want of a better phrase, two-tier human rights, where you saw if a British citizen brought a foreign spouse over, they would only be able to bring them over if that person met certain requirements of salaries. And that was always a grave injustice. And the Tories were putting that limit up and up and up. But the Tories never addressed the fact that asylum seekers could effectively, almost immediately, once they've got refugee status, bring their family over, yet Brits effectively couldn't. So it's good that they're looking at that. I think they also need to perhaps address the very high salary levels of British people wanting to bring their spouses over to make it fair. That's something that needs to happen. It needs to be made fair for British citizens as well. But I think it's a good point to address.
OK, superb stuff. David Hay, thanks for joining us and thanks for listening so attentively to the show before you come on and looking dapper as ever. Thank you, David Hay. And also thank you, Olivia Utley, superb. Got some breaking news for you now, and it's this. The provisional Met Office statistics confirm that the summer of 2025 is officially the warmest summer on record for the United Kingdom. There we go, officially the hottest year. No doubt they'll say it's all down to climate change. Now, coming up next, withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights will not jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland. Now, that's according to a new report from Jack Straw, Tony Blair's former Home Secretary. This is GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Sir Keir Starmer says that he completely gets people's concerns about migration and insisted he wanted to speed up efforts to empty asylum hotels before the next general election. Well, the government has pledged today to empty all hotels housing migrants by the end of Parliament. However, the Home Office did recently step in to stop Epping Council closing down the now infamous Bell Hotel. Well, let's now speak with the Vice Chairwoman of Epping Forest Reform UK, Orla Minihane. Orla, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company as ever.
Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, my love. So, Yvette Cooper just delivered a statement to the House of Commons, once again pledging to end asylum hotels by the end of this government. Must come as something of a surprise to the residents of Epping, of course, because the Home Office stepped in and seemed to put the rights of asylum seekers before the rights of people like yourself.
Which is lovely, isn't it? And Bridget, the lovely Bridget Phillipson, confirmed that. Again, just in case we didn't hear it first time round. So, yes, they look, the continuous nonsense that this Labour government keeps spouting about asylum hotels. Everybody has got to the stage where we just don't even listen anymore. So it doesn't matter what they come out with. Smash the gangs. What a load of nonsense. You know, we're going to end asylum hotels. Well, if you're going to end asylum hotels by 2029, and let's be clear, I very much doubt they'll still be in power by that time. If they're going to do that, why aren't they starting to do it now? Why waste all this time and money by going to the appeal court and stopping the closure of the Bell? I mean, they haven't got a plan. They haven't got any strategy. What they're saying by continuously repeating, we will end the use of migrant hotels, is simply, we will grant these people asylum and give them council houses and put them into the community. That's all. They're not saying we're going to deport the 35,000 migrants that are in these hotels. They're saying we're just going to move them from pillar to post and close the hotels down. They're still going to come into our communities. They're still going to be receiving benefits. They're still going to pose a risk if they haven't been screened properly. It's just moving the problem from pillar to post, and that is what Labour do continuously.
Orla, I wanted to ask your opinion on another statement that came out from Yvette Cooper today, because we were continually told it's a fantasy. It was far-right rhetoric to imply that British citizens were forced down the pecking order in social housing lists, and yet the Home Secretary herself today confirmed, astonishingly, in some areas, 24% of all council housing is now asylum seekers and their dependents. Over 20,000 dependents, not asylum seekers themselves, their family members brought in last year alone. And I put it to you, Orla, if the hotel in Epping is closed and all others are closed, as the government promised, where will these people go?
Into the community, into the housing that should be given to vulnerable families or families that need housing, that are in temporary accommodation. There's women and children that are in bedsits, British women and children that are in bedsits. And let me be clear, when I say British women and children, I do not mean white British women and children. I mean British people who are all entitled to have their needs and their agenda met before people have got off a boat illegally. And the thing is, the more that the government and the more that people talk about these, their legislation that they're going to bring in, etc., and the more that gets out, the more people will come over the channel. You know, they'll keep coming because they hear, oh, I can bring my family. Oh, I'm going to get a council house. You know, they come here for a reason, and that is because we've got an open door policy and we give them everything at the cost of our local people and our local Brits. It's just so unbelievably out of order.
Orla, Yvette Cooper seemed to, again, have a thinly veiled pop at people like yourselves, in fact, asylum seeker protesters across the country, when she said there's a correct way to wave the Union flag and the St George's flag, and that is to do so kindly, with pride and decency. We also learned today, Orla Minihane, may come as a surprise to you, the Prime Minister himself, Sir Keir Starmer, claims to own a St George's flag. Never had him down as a St George's flag waver, did you?
Look, let me be very clear, OK? The St. George's flag is the flag of this country. The Union Jack is the flag of Great Britain. This is Great Britain and this is England. It's not Palestine, it's not the EU anymore, it's none of those countries. So if we cannot wave and be proud of our flag in our own country, something is very, very wrong. And to prove that point, here is my cup. So, my point is that, you know, in Ireland, on St. Patrick's Day, my family are Irish. On St. Patrick's Day, we wave around an Irish flag and we dress up as leprechauns. And in Chicago, they dye the river green and everyone says, how fantastic. No one says, oh my God, they're IRA or they're dreadful Irish nationalists. They say, wonderful. They're celebrating their culture. Why can't we do the same?
OK, Orla, we're going to have to leave it there. We're simply running out of time, but I will raise my GB News mug to you. And let's have a little cheers.
Cheers.
There we go. It's always a pleasure, my darling.
Take care.
You might now go. That's Orla Minihagen, the Vice-Chairwoman of Epping Forest Reform UK. Thank you very much for joining us today on GB News. Now, lots more still to come to now, 5 o'clock, including teams continue to scramble for transfer deadline deals. Come on, the Forest. The Liverpool finally get their hands on Newcastle's Alexander Isak for a British transfer record, an astonishing sum of money. But first, here's your headlines with our very own multi-million-pound signing. Sam Francis.
Multi-million sounds good, sadly not. The top story at 4:30, the Home Secretary has promised the biggest shake-up of Britain's borders in years. Faster removals and a crackdown on smugglers. Yvette Cooper says she's committed to fixing every aspect of the broken system she claims Labour inherited.
There would have been tens of thousands more people in asylum accommodation, in asylum hotels across the country right now. That is the kind of chaos that his policies were heading towards.
But the Shadow Home Secretary claims that Labour is failing to get a grip on small boats. Chris Philp says the deterrent must be much tougher.
Everybody entering this country illegally should be immediately removed to their country of origin.
In Europe, meanwhile, Ursula von der Leyen's plane was forced to land in Bulgaria using paper maps after suspected Russian GPS jamming. Brussels calls it blatant interference. Disaster in Afghanistan. More than 800 people are confirmed dead after a powerful earthquake flattened villages across 4 provinces. Thousands are feared injured and rescuers are struggling to remove and reach remote areas. And Queen Camilla has revealed she once fought off an attempted assault as a teenager, striking her attacker with a shoe on a train. She's since vowed to keep trying to end sexual violence. Those are the latest headlines. I'm off to renegotiate that multi-million-pound contract.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The unsettled weather continues as we go through the next few days. Plenty of showers still to come, even some longer spells of rain. It's all because there's an area of low pressure, quite a mature, deep low pressure just to the northwest of the UK, driving the fairly unsettled weather that we have at the moment. There will still be quite a few showers to come as we go through the rest of today. They are going to start to ease and clear away as we go overnight for many places, albeit towards the northwest of Scotland. Frequent showers continuing here, and down the western side of England and Wales, a few showers as well overnight. Other places, though, having a good deal of dry and at times clear weather. Under the clear skies, temperatures could drop into single figures, particularly away from the towns and cities. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, well, it's a showery start to the day across parts of Scotland, particularly across the west. This is where we're going to have the heaviest, most frequent showers and the greatest chance of thunder as we go through the day. A brighter start across eastern Scotland, but showers arriving here later on. A mostly dry start for Northern Ireland, but a few showers trying to push their way in, and then showers for western parts of England and Wales, and a more persistent spell of rain pushing into parts of the southwest. Now, this feature is going to make its way eastwards across southern counties as we go through the day tomorrow, and it could be quite heavy at times. There could even be some rumbles of thunder mixed in with it. Elsewhere, a fair few showers to watch out for. These showers becoming a bit more widespread as we go through the day, but perhaps not quite as intense, not as thundery as those that we've seen through today. There will be some sunshine in between the showers, and in that sunshine, temperatures just about getting into the high teens or low 20s for some of us. Later on, the more persistent rain in the south fringes its way into parts of East Anglia before clearing away, and elsewhere we will see the showers starting to fizzle out. But there's more wet and blustery weather to come as we go through Wednesday. For many of us, it does look like a very unsettled day indeed. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A83 at Butterbridge is currently closed in both directions due to a weather-related incident with debris blocking the carriageway. Motorists are advised to find alternate routes and expect significantly longer travel times. On the M62 westbound, an accident between junction 12 and junction 11 is causing 2 out of 4 lanes to be closed. Additionally, there is major disruption on southeastern train services between Gravesend and Rainham, and also on Avanti West Coast trains operating between Watford Junction and Milton Keynes Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a report backed by none other than the former Labour Home Secretary Jack Straw has claimed that withdrawing from the ECHR will not jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland after all. Now, the reports from the Policy Exchange dismiss claims that remaining in the ECHR was vital for peace in Northern Ireland. What's to be seen as a significant boost for those who are campaigning for the UK to leave the convention, and one in the eye for all of those determined to keep us in. Well, let's now speak with an expert on this issue, and that's the DUP MP, Sammy Wilson. Sammy, it's always a delight to have your company. Well, we heard all along, we were told that leaving the ECHR, leaving the EU, in fact, would derail the Belfast Agreement. Nothing of the sort. And if anybody is surprised about this, it's Jack Straw coming to the aid. Hardly a far-right extremist.
Well, of course, this has been the ploy of the establishment all along. When Brexit was being debated, if we left the EU, it was going to bring instability in Northern Ireland. We'd have war again. Of course, it didn't happen. And of course, now that we're trying to tackle the serious immigration problem that we have, illegal immigration, and it's been thwarted by the ECHR, then the opponents are saying that, oh, if you try to leave the ECHR, then you're going to jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland. It's not true. It's the ploy which the establishment uses to try and stop policies that they don't like. And the left-wing establishment, which is embedded in the courts, the civil service, the various lobbyists and the media, of course, are abusing Northern Ireland as they did in the past. And I think that people should, first of all, look at what happened after Brexit. There was no outbreak of violence in Northern Ireland. I think that the same is the case here. And now, of course, you've got strong legal opinion, which has made it quite clear that leaving the ECHR would have no impact on the Belfast Agreement.
And Sammy, you've been saying this all along. You called this right from the very, very beginning, how this was all weaponised during Brexit, and here we are again. And yet it's Jack Straw who's pointing out there are 2 main documents that will come into effect. One of them doesn't even mention the ECHR and the Good Friday Agreement, and the other one mentions it only in reference to saying it could be easily bypassed.
Well, the international part of the agreement is a British-Irish agreement, and as you've quite rightly pointed out, and Jack Straw has pointed out, the ECHR is not even mentioned in it. So you will not be breaking any international obligations or law that seems to be the favourite call from the left wing in the United Kingdom. It seems to be more interested in foreign law or international law than in having good British laws to deal with problems which we need to deal with in the United Kingdom. And of course, the political agreement between the parties in Northern Ireland, we've already seen that the Conservative Party, when it was in power and wanted to get Brexit through quickly, simply took away the 2 central pillars of it, namely the constitutional guarantee, which was something for unionists, and also the need for cross-community votes in the Assembly where there were controversial issues to be dealt with. So all you need to deal with the ECHR issue in the political agreement is a majority in Parliament where you simply, and the political will to do so, where you simply say, look, we have got to move on here, that we've got an important issue for the United Kingdom as a whole, and we're simply going to change that. And so, you know, we've argued this all along, and I hope that reform will not be taken in by the arguments of the left-wing establishment, and will recognise that if leaving the ECHR is important, then we do it. And don't forget, it was, it was judges in Strasbourg, or one judge in Strasbourg, in the middle of the night, without even hearing the British government's case, stopped the Rwanda flights going. That's why we need to leave the ECHR if we're going to have control over our own immigration policy and our own country.
And Sammy, may I get a final point from you? How sick are people in Northern Ireland? How sick are politicians like yourself of being used by the political establishment in Westminster, weaponising Northern Ireland for their own good?
Well, I mean, I've said this all along, that and the establishment don't really care about peace in Northern Ireland. They make all these claims. They try to destabilise the place by saying, oh, if this happens, there's going to be dreadful consequences, etc. And that, for some people in Northern Ireland, they then think, oh, this is going to be awful. Instead of recognising that they're being used time and time again. And my message to the elite in the civil service and the judiciary and the lobbyists and the media is stop abusing the people of Northern Ireland. The removal of from the ECHR will still leave plenty of safeguards for people. There's the law, there's the courts adjudicating on the law, and that's all the safeguards people need. Don't be stirring up unnecessary fears, because that's all they do, and it's for their own selfish ends, and it's to thwart a policy which is good for the people of the United Kingdom as a whole.
OK, Sammy Wilson, superb as ever. Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. DUP MP, thanks for joining us today on GB News. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's remaining unsettled across parts of Central Europe as we go for the next few days. Either side, plenty of dry and sunny weather to be had. There could be a few showers on Tuesday across parts of the Canaries, but still plenty of dry and fine weather to be had. And for much of Iberia, actually plenty of sunshine around. But then we come back into the risk of some severe thunderstorms across parts of Italy and southern France. But then for much of Greece and Turkey, it's back to the sunshine with temperatures in places here reaching the low 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
ChatGPT.
What's that?
If you don't know what it is, it's artificial intelligence, and it helps you write things and research things, and you can even talk to them like they're your friend, can't you, Tom?
Shall we
you
do
know
some
about
of that
this,
now?
don't you?
I mean, we could talk to Chat now.
Go on, you love talking to Chat.
I was actually
Careful, though.
I was actually talking to Chat last night about Texas redistricting. It was very good fun. Wait, hang on, here we go.
Beats railway lines.
Hi, Chat. You're live on GB News. How are you feeling?
Oh, wow, live TV. That's exciting. I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me on. How's everything going on your end?
It's going great. We're just doing a segment about artificial intelligence. Do you have anything to say about that?
Absolutely. AI is such a fascinating topic, and it's amazing to see how it's evolving and becoming part of our everyday lives. There's so much potential for it to help us in all kinds of fields, including journalism.
ChatGPT, to which we were just talking, is undergoing a major change after concerns it was giving overly direct advice on sensitive personal matters, including whether users should break up with their partners. So you could write in there, oh, my partner never takes the rubbish out, he sometimes sometimes is a bit rude to me, blah, 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 and then they say, break up with him.
But here's the interesting thing. For people that have been taking relationship advice from this robot, well, OpenAI, the company behind it, says the chatbot will stop giving such clear-cut answers to questions about personal relationships. So that's a new change from OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT.
Yeah. I've just asked, does Emily Carver like Tom Harwood?
And
I've asked the chatbot
what does
this.
chat say?
There's no evidence Emily Carver likes Tom Harwood.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:48. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Liverpool and Newcastle have agreed a £125 million whopping British transfer record for their striker, Alexander Isaac. Let's talk through one of the busiest days in all of world football. Let's speak now with the sports presenter, great friend of mine and the show, Aidan McGee. Aidan, always an absolute pleasure. It's all interesting about Isaac. What about Nottingham Forest?
Nottingham Forest. Well, look, I'll tell you something. I know that two of their players are looking to go on loan somewhere, but I'll try and track down the names because there weren't two players that were known to me. But I think one might be going to Sunderland, one might be going to Strasbourg. I should have learned their name, knowing that you were probably going to ask me that first up.
Let's get back to the meat and drink. I'm obviously being facetious. It is a huge sum of money. The second time Liverpool have broken the transfer record, £125 million for Alexander Isaac. Is he worth it?
Look, we won't know that until he gets to a bigger club in Liverpool and is able to produce in the Champions League. They've already won the Premier League last season. They want to do it in the Champions League. Ideally, they want to do it in both. But the number of games, the schedule they're going to have to take on. Don't forget all the summer tours that all these clubs get involved. They need a glut of players, especially good quality ones. Now, I felt a month ago when I was asked about this that when Liverpool came in with a bid of £110 million and we knew that Newcastle's valuation was closer to 150, I thought the great minds would meet eventually, even though there's an element of brinkmanship about it. It's gone to the final day. I felt that a deal of around £130 million, which I think is what it's going to total up to when it's all said and done, when the add-ons are realised, sounds like a sensible deal. Newcastle cannot realistically hold on to a player who has made a statement saying he wants to leave. The reintegration process would have been a very hard ask for Eddie Howe at the best of times. And they've also gone and got a player from Brentford who also did the Isak trick on Brentford in getting his move to Newcastle. Johan Visser, he's moving today, vastly inflated, £55 million, given that he didn't have long left on his contract. But he is at least Premier League ready. But the action doesn't stop there in terms of Anfield specifically, because it looks like they're going to get Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace, around about £35 million. A year left on his contract, a bit of a risk for the player himself, because if he goes to Liverpool, he's got to play, Martin, because he wants to be a first choice in the World Cup for England under Thomas Tuchel next summer, and he's got to break the axis of Virgil van Dijk and Konate. Konate shows a few signs of fallibility in the early weeks of the season, but did play well yesterday. He's got a fight in his hands to get in the team, but also there could be a slight twist on that, and this is what I was used to dealing with for so many years in my previous job. Sometimes there's a snag somewhere on the line that derails everything. This move of Gahey from Crystal Palace to Liverpool was predicated on Crystal Palace finding a replacement. Now, we know that Liverpool weren't prepared to play ball on the South London boy, Joe Gomez, but they were looking to sign a player from their great rivals, Brighton, Igor Julio. We understand that Julio has decided to opt for West Ham and not Crystal Palace. So, in theory, if Palace don't get a replacement, there's still scope for the bid to be off. I fancy, though, that Liverpool might just come back with more money tonight. But the broader sense of this, Martin, the broader feeling is that we have a chance of reaching £3 billion in spending in this window alone, which is absolutely eye-wateringly, stupendously outrageous. I mean, I used to say to people, they're worth that money because that's what the market says they're worth. Most of these clubs lose money, so I don't see how it makes much economic sense. Liverpool alone, if they get these two deals done today, will go over £400 million. That's more than Chelsea spent 2 years ago in 2023. It's a record of all time. Absolutely bananas.
It's an absolutely huge sum of money. In fact, it's almost a quarter of what we spend on asylum seekers on benefits per year.
I actually worked out it's higher than the GDP of Belize.
There you go, put it in perspective. Now, as I've got you here, Aid, let's talk about a legendary boxing great that's passed away today. We've learned Joe Bugner, of course, born in Hungary, but adopted by Britain, fought under the Union flag. Epic battles went the distance with Muhammad Ali. Joe Bugner, a legendary slugger, has passed away.
Yes, absolutely. Very sad news. He's passed away in Brisbane at the age of 75. Now, I remember him fighting Frank Bruno in 1987 at White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
He actually lost on a technical knockout, but by then he was past his best. What we'll remember of Joe Bugner's career was a man who fought Soviet far-left oppression, came to the UK, settled over here. He stood 6'4" and 82-inch reach as well, a formidable individual. And he went the distance, as you say, with Muhammad Ali. He also got in the ring with Joe Frazier, and he also knocked out Henry Cooper, our very own, our Henry as we called him. He was quite unpopular at that point. And then he moved off to Australia after finishing his career at the end of the 80s. But an absolute stalwart of the sport. And in his latter years, I'm sure he would have been looking back on a life well lived.
An absolute stormer, and I've got to say, devilishly handsome, and from one of the greats of that great boxing age to go 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali. Aidan McGee, you're tasty. I don't think even you could do that.
Don't write me off, yeah?
Aidan McGee, superb as ever. Thank you for joining us on a sad day for Joe Bugner and boxing, but of course a monumental, a bonkers day in football. Aidan McGee, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much. It's been, well, way too long. Now, up next.
The system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system.
This government is failing, and everyone can see it. 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration and asylum badly.
Yeah, a desperate attempt to shore up illegal immigration. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has rolled out plans. That's all coming next on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The unsettled weather continues as we go through the next few days. Plenty of showers still to come, even some longer spells of rain. It's all because there's an area of low pressure, quite a mature, deep low pressure just to the northwest of the UK, driving the fairly unsettled weather that we have at the moment. There will still be quite a few showers to come as we go through the rest of today. They are going to start to ease and clear away as we go overnight for many places, albeit towards the northwest of Scotland. Frequent showers continuing here, and down the western side of England and Wales, a few showers as well overnight. Other places, though, having a good deal of dry and at times clear weather. Under the clear skies, temperatures could drop into single figures, particularly away from the towns and cities. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, well, it's a showery start to the day across parts of Scotland, particularly across the west. This is where we're going to have the heaviest, most frequent showers and the greatest chance of thunder as we go through the day. A brighter start across eastern Scotland, but showers arriving here later on. A mostly dry start for Northern Ireland, but a few showers trying to push their way in, and then showers for western parts of England and Wales, and a more persistent spell of rain pushing into parts of the southwest. Now, this feature is going to make its way eastwards across southern counties as we go through the day tomorrow, and it could be quite heavy at times. There could even be some rumbles of thunder mixed in with it. Elsewhere, a fair few showers to watch out for. These showers becoming a bit more widespread as we go through the day, but perhaps not quite as intense, not as thundery as those that we've seen through today. There will be some sunshine in between the showers, and in that sunshine, temperatures just about getting into the high teens or low 20s for some of us. Later on, the more persistent rain in the south fringes its way into parts of East Anglia before clearing away, and elsewhere we will see the showers starting to fizzle out. But there's more wet and blustery weather to come as we go through Wednesday. For many of us, it does look like a very unsettled day indeed. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A83 at Butterbridge is closed due to debris from a weather incident. Drivers should use alternative routes. On the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 3 and 2, expect 15-minute delays tonight. In Salford, the M62 westbound has 2 lanes closed from a collision, expected to clear by 7. The M1 southbound has 3 lanes closed due to an incident, causing 30-minute delays. And on the trains, Southeastern faces major disruptions between Gravesend, Rainham and Faversham, while Avanti West Coast reports delays between Watford Junction and Milton Keynes Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
A very good afternoon. It's great to be back, and it's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. Coming up on today's show.
The system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system.
This government is failing, and everyone can see it. 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration and asylum badly.
Yes, in a desperate attempt to shore up the illegal immigration crisis, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper today announced a raft of new plans. With record illegal arrivals and escalating asylum hotel protests, will it be too little, too late to save a sinking Labour Party? And as Parliament returns, chaos surrounds the Labour Party. Angela Rayner faces a probe over her 3 homes. And rumours are swirling around Westminster that Chancellor Rachel Reeves might be gone by Christmas. And meanwhile, in a reshuffle to prop up his wobbling premiership, Keir Starmer has promoted Treasury Minister Darren Jones. He's most famous for saying this.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not. Meanwhile, house prices have taken a slump as the market responds to rumours of mansion taxes and capital gains taxes. As landlords scramble to sell off to avoid NI hikes, has Labour shaken the foundations of the property market? And withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights will not jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland. That's according to a report backed by former Labour Home Secretary Jack Straw. In a boost to Nigel Farage, Blair's former top man has blasted such claims as entirely groundless. And brave Hannah Breeden was only given hours to live when she was born, now aged 18. And with chronic muscular dystrophy, her dad Simon hopes to raise enough money to take her on one final holiday to Disneyland. I'll be joined by Hannah and Simon on today's show to help make their dream of Hannah's last holiday come true. And that's all coming up over your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. First day back in Parliament today, and Yvette Cooper came out swinging. She hopes to contain the illegal migration crisis. She was talking of a new deal with France to be beefed up and closing the absurd loophole which has allowed over 20,000 asylum seekers' family members to come into the United Kingdom in this past year alone. There'll also be tweaks to the European Convention on Human Rights. There'll be closures on Article 8. But will it be enough, or is it simply rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? Get in touch, use your way, send your views to GBNews.com, your say, /your say, beg your pardon. I'm getting excited here, and no wonder, because here's Sam Francis.
Those are the, in fact, these are the top stories at 5 o'clock. The Home Secretary has promised the biggest shake-up of Britain's borders in years. The first returns under a new treaty with France will begin later this month, alongside tougher language rules, expanded detention and a crackdown on smuggling gangs. Yvette Cooper says she's committed to fixing every aspect of the broken system she claims Labour inherited from the Tories.
Solving problems, not exploiting them. A serious and comprehensive plan, not fantasy claims based on sums that don't add up or gimmicks that failed in the past. What we will never do is seek to stir up chaos, division or hate, because that is not who we are as a country, and that is not what Britain stands for.
Well, the Conservatives claimed in response that the government is failing to get a grip on small boats. And Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says Labour's decision to abandon their Rwanda plan has left Britain without a real deterrent.
If someone enters this country illegally, they should not be allowed to bring in any family members. In fact, everybody entering this country illegally should be immediately removed to their country of origin, if possible, and if not possible, to a safe third country such as Rwanda, a scheme which she cancelled just days before it was due to start.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is reshaping his Downing Street team, creating a brand new role at number 10. Labour's Darren Jones is moving from the Treasury to become Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, a job designed, in the words of officials, to turbocharge the government. Jones will be based in number 10, overseeing work across Whitehall to drive the Prime Minister's priorities. James Murray replaces him as Treasury Chief Secretary, while Dan Tomlinson becomes Exchequer Secretary. It follows Sir Keir's recent move to bring in Baroness Manucci Shafiq, the former Columbia University president, as his chief economic advisor. Reform UK has vowed to save taxpayers billions with a radical shake-up of local government pension funds. The party's deputy chairman, Richard Tice, said earlier that the scale of waste is a true scandal of mismanagement and claims his plan could slash council tax bills.
The size of these pension funds, the numbers are enormous. Our 13 councils alone, you're looking to March 24, which is the last audited numbers, about £66 billion. What is that? It's bigger than our annual defence budget, just in 13 councils. Across the whole of the local government pension scheme, it's over £400 billion.
And staying with politics, the Conservatives are challenging Labour to rule out a new property tax, forcing the Commons to have a vote ahead of next week's budget. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is under pressure to plug a gap in the public finances, with sluggish growth and higher borrowing costs piling on the strain. Options reportedly on the table include scrapping capital gains tax relief on expensive homes or tightening inheritance tax rules. That vote's expected on Wednesday, with opposition leader Kemi Badenoch telling us ministers must come clean on their plans.
We need the government to be honest with people. They have been making a lot of noise about black holes. The truth is, they're the ones who created a black hole with their budget last year. They tax businesses who have shed loads of jobs. Unemployment has been rising every single month since Labour came into power. The economy is doing really badly under them, and now they're coming back for more. So we need them to be honest, and that is what the vote on Wednesday is about. Labour telling us exactly what it is they're going to do, but we're the only party that will defend home ownership.
In other news tonight, Queen Camilla has revealed she once fought off a man who tried to indecently assault her on a train as a teenager. According to a new book, Power and the Palace, the Queen told Boris Johnson during his time as London Mayor that the incident happened when she was about 16 or 17, travelling to Paddington. She said she hit the man with her shoe before reporting him to police. Camilla has since become a long-standing campaigner against sexual abuse and domestic violence, pledging last year she would keep trying to end it. And the UK has just recorded its hottest summer on record, the Met Office has confirmed today. Average temperatures across June, July and August hit 16.1 degrees, beating the previous high set in 2018. And it follows the warmest spring since records began, with months of hot and dry weather leading to hosepipe bans, drought orders, poor harvests and falling reservoir levels. All 5 of the UK's hottest summers, in fact, have now happened since the year 2000. That's it from me for this hour. I'll be back with you in 30 minutes. Now, though, it's over to a very overexcited Martin Daubney, not before the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here are those markets for you just after 5 o'clock. The pound will buy you $1.352 and 1.154 euros. The price of gold, £2,565 and 98 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,200 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has suspended refugee family reunion applications as the government overhauls the asylum system. While addressing MPs in the House of Commons a little earlier today, Yvette Cooper outlined the government's new plans, but she was challenged by the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp for not promising to smash the gangs.
The overall system remains sclerotic, outdated and unfair. So as we committed in the Immigration White Paper, we will shortly set out more radical reforms to modernise the asylum system and to boost our border security, tackling the pull factors, strengthening enforcement, making sure people are treated fairly, reforming the way that the ECHR is interpreted here at home, speeding up the system, cutting numbers and ending the use of hotels.
Now, it's very interesting during her statement, Mr. Speaker, to notice she did not mention her favourite phrase from a year or so ago, that she was going to smash the gangs. I wonder why she was so silent on her previously favourite catchphrase. Things are not getting any better, they are getting worse. This government is failing, and everyone can see it. That is why there are protests up and down the country. And where those protests are peaceful, I support them. That is why, this is a shocking figure, 75%, let this sink in, 75% of the public think the government is handling immigration and asylum badly.
Now, the Home Secretary also pledged to close all asylum hotels for good, which might come as a surprise to those living in Epping. And after a summer of protests, is today simply too little, too late? Well, I'm joined in the studio by political editor Chris Hope and also by the Labour peer Lord McCabe. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Chris, I'm going to start with you. A political football today, a game of tit for tat, once again blaming each other for the chaos around illegal immigration. But 2 big points for me leapt out. A lot of reheated things we've heard about, deals with France, National Crime Agency, £100 million extra. But a clampdown on those rules this week to suspend the current family asylum rules, which at present have allowed in the past year over 20,000 foreign dependents.
Yeah, those figures are
into the country.
4,300, Martin, arriving in 2023 to only 20,000 in 2024. It does seem sort of jarring that we have this different attitude towards asylum seekers coming here against Brits who have foreign partners. right now it seems that if you get the right to remain here, you can then bring over spouses, wives, husbands, children. As soon as you get settled status, they don't have to show they have necessary accommodation or an income to live without benefits. But if you are a Brit with a foreign spouse, a husband, wife, or whoever, they would have to earn £29,000 minimum income to come into the UK. It's almost a bias against those who are taxpayers here. That will change immediately. We're having a ban immediately on refugees bringing their families here. That's a start. Again, we see this government slowly trying to move the dial against this big flow of migration coming in.
It's slowly enough, though, because we're just saying in the break there, Lord McCabe, that what's happened over the summer recess, there hasn't been a summer recess, certainly from the point of view from Nigel Farage. In fact, he's been campaigning on legal immigration, and the asylum hotel protests have not shown any letter whatsoever. Is this enough, or is it just tinkering, faffing around?
Well, I mean, you have to remember, this is a government that hasn't been in power 14 months yet, and most of what we've just heard is stuff that they inherited. That is reality. So I would say that Labour were quite clear in their manifesto that this was a priority. I think we have seen some steps, and there are more steps now. And, you know, as far as the family reunion thing is concerned, I mean, why was that allowed to go on for so long? It's quite
Tory
right.
party. Yeah.
Well, yes, indeed.
Why was it ever allowed to happen in the first place? It's just, it's astonishing to think that anybody coming here, even illegally, can claim asylum and then invite anybody.
Mr Filk should have answered that when he was at the dispatch box.
I think that's why he seems to annoy Labour so much, Lord McKay, because he was this happened on some of his watch. But why isn't it working? There's a frustration out there. Why isn't this government focusing all its attention on tackling the crisis? We see today Darren Jones appointed as Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. One of his 3 areas he's looking at is dealing with the migration crisis, and yet he's somebody who talked about the small boats arriving with young women, children in there. He had to resolve from those comments. But is he the right person to tackle the small boats crisis?
Well, I think that appointment, I think that's about just trying to get a better balance between what's happening at number 10 and what's happening with the Labour backbench MPs. And I think it covers more than one area, not just migration, economics as well. And look, I think the issue here is everybody is frustrated by the migrant crisis. I don't think there is a single person who isn't fed up to the back teeth. But we all know in reality that there are steps that have to be taken, and sometimes they take longer than we would want. And it is much easier to stand up and make a grand speech and offer a whole lot of hopeful promises. The reality of being in government is you've got to deliver, and that is the test that Labour are going to run into. And that, I would say, we have to measure this and where we are in, say, 18 months, because I think that's a more realistic period.
Gentlemen, something else that leapt out to me today was Ms Cooper referred to the current rescue mission of children from Gaza. A lot of people think we shouldn't be doing that at all. We shouldn't take in any Palestinian refugees because they can bring family dependence. We may never get rid of them. Why aren't Arabian countries taking them? I digress. But she did mention something fascinating. All of those people, including the relatives and the children, will have biometric tests to make sure that their children... Why are we doing that on all people coming into the country? It seems eminently sensible, and yet we've heard all along, Lord McCabe, it's too intrusive. The lawyers won't stand for it.
Well, firstly, I mean, I think it is interesting that the Arab countries are not rushing forward to take Palestinian refugees, and we should ask ourselves, why is that the case? In terms of biometric testing, that seems to me eminently sensible, and I have no idea why it didn't happen years ago.
Well, because it's eminently sensible.
Well, you could argue that. But, you know, I don't know why it didn't happen before. It seems to me we have to know that we're talking about children. We have to know the age of these children. It wouldn't be the first time that people have turned out to be much older than they've claimed to be. And we, you know, quite frankly, some people won't like this, but we have to know who they're connected to. It won't be the first time that Hamas has used family members to project their propaganda.
Steve, I think you speak eminent common sense. It will never catch on. Chris Hope, in fact, Cooper spoke about flags, which I thought was a bit of a bizarre thing to say. She said, when we wave the Indian flag and we wave the St George's flag, we should do so kindly and with pride and with decency. I think that was a Bob reference to those at asylum hotels who aren't waving flags in the correct manner, perhaps. But you got a line from number 10. Apparently, Keir Starmer is a secret flag adorer.
This goes back to Operation Raise the Colours. You're seeing flags raised on motorway bridges. I was driving down the M6 and M1. I saw them on the bridges that I drove through parts of Birmingham on my 2-week break. Again, I saw them hanging from lampposts. This has caused a bit of a debate out in the country. We hear from number 10 Downing Street today that Sir Keir Starmer has got a flag. It's from the Euros football championships last summer. He has pride in the flag, we're told. I think it's important we have pride in our flag. It represents our history, our heritage and our values, and that's why he's a flag in his country, why he's a flag in his flat. I said, is it a large flag? They wouldn't comment. And couldn't it be tied and wrapped around him? We're not sure yet. But the issue of the flag, the English flag, is becoming a political issue. It's being reclaimed by some people away from what some people saw as associations with what they would call the far right. Some people say, why can't you have the English flag and just declare it?
Lord McCabe, might we see soon the surprising sight of the Prime Minister sheathed, wrapped in a St George's flag to prove that he's a patriot after all?
Well, I think England have to get to another final before that will happen. Look, as a Scot, I can't say I get too enthusiastic about the prospect of wearing St George's flags, but I've got nothing against people waving their flag and having some pride in their country. I think we all know that some people are doing this out of a genuine act of patriotism, and some people do have another motive. And, like you know, well, we know perfectly well that not everyone who's wrapping themselves in St George's flag, or indeed a Union Jack, tragically, is doing it because they're actually demonstrating how proud they are. What they're doing is trying to say that other people are not entitled to, whether they were born here or not. And we know that's the case.
Do you think that's the case, or is that your interpretation? And we have to be careful here because, for example, we can't say that everyone wrapped in a Palestinian flag supports Hamas. We can't judge a whole group by the actions of a few, and that the Labour Party, they seem to be to do that.
No, I just said some, and I'm talking, I mean, you must see the same photographs as me. You must have seen the photographs of football hooligans in the past disgracing the flag as they've gone rampaging through places. It is not always the case that people who wave their flags and wear their flags are doing it out of a genuine sense of patriotism. Those people should be encouraged and supported. That's my point.
OK, thank you very much, Lord Steve McCabe, and also Chris Hope. Let's move on to my next story now, because Angela Rayner faces questions once again, this time over allegedly dodging inheritance tax. She's been facing questions over whether she avoided 40 grand in stamp duty when buying her new gaff in East Sussex. And despite this, the spokesman for Keir Starmer says he has full confidence in Rayner, and she's denied any wrongdoing. Well, I'm joined now by the Conservative councillor for Stalebridge South, Liam Billington. Liam, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. And you wanted to comment today because I believe Miss Rayner is in your area, and we've heard a lot of talk about the fact that she's never really there.
No, she isn't. So Angela is in the constituency next door. We have 3 MPs in Tameside: Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds and Andrew Gwynn. And locals feel that all 3 of them are absent. Angela's never here. She just makes the fleeting visits to the constituency and then goes away. But now we're being told by the Prime Minister that this is a legal matter and Angela can't talk about the situation with her main home in Ashton. Now, all week we have heard different excuses which have been briefed by the Labour Party, whether it be what's the main home, what's the second home, is she paying the right council tax, why is she on the electoral roll in certain places. And the latest thing is her hiring a wealth management firm, presumably to dodge paying inheritance tax. Now, the Times have covered that, and they've got legal and tax experts to look at this. And the £650,000 value of the Ashton property is conveniently equal to the inheritance tax threshold on trusts. So I think it's absolutely outrageous. You know, everyone knows about the hypocrisy about how Angela Rayner has gone on for years and years and years about how tax dodging or tax evasion is wrong, but yet she seems happy to do it herself. No one has an issue with doing these things. It's the level of hypocrisy from Angela Rayner.
Yeah, Liam, I think it's worth Liam. It's worth pointing out that nothing illegal or dodgy has taken place. In fact, you might say that what Angela Rayner is doing is sensible wealth management, the sort of thing that a Conservative might do. But your point is, it seems to be particularly hypocritical when it's somebody of Angela Rayner's background and her position as the housing minister. You think there's a particular problem around that?
I don't think there's a problem around her background. I don't think she's being entirely truthful with her background. So we all know locally that Angela didn't spend that long as a care worker. She spent most of her career as a trade union rep. And I think what we need to know is she had a go at Rishi Sunak and the fact that he had a trust with his wife. Well, as a councillor, I have to disclose what my spouse earns and their interests or what property they own. MPs don't have to do that. And I think it's double standards from someone who is in charge of local government to expect me as a councillor to be of a higher standard than a member of parliament who's paid several times more. Now, I have no problem declaring that. I'm single anyway, so I don't have anything to declare with a spouse. But, you know, she's got her ex-husband. She's got this trust set up. And I think we should know, are there any other properties set up in that trust?
OK, thank you, Beth. I'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. That's the Conservative councillor for Stalebridge South, Liam Billington. Now, I've got a spokesman for Angela Rayner who told GB News this. The Deputy Prime Minister paid the correct duty owed on the purchase entirely properly and in line with all relevant requirements. Any suggestion otherwise is entirely without basis. I want to get a quick comment from Lord Steve McCabe, who's still with us in the studio here on this situation around Angela Rayner. She's got 3 homes, but there's no wrongdoing. But it's not a good look for her, is it, as the housing minister?
Well, I think Angela's problem is that she's a woman, she's Labour, she's from a working class background and a trade union background, and the Tories can't stand it. I think that's fundamentally the problem. She's got 3 homes. I have never heard anyone comment on a Tory minister having a grace and favour apartment when they've been in office. So I don't really get the 3 homes thing. I don't even know if she has 2 homes. But, you know, as far as I'm aware, there is no evidence to support any of the claims that are being made about her at the moment. And as I say, I think the problem is she's a feisty woman and the Tories can't stomach it. That's the honest truth.
OK, Lord Steve McCabe, we'll leave it there. Thank you very, very much. Please stick with us. I'm Martin Daubney. You're with me on GB News. Well done, mate. Thank you.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a report endorsed by the former Labour Home Secretary, Jack Straw, well, it's claimed that withdrawing from the ECHR will not jeopardise peace in Northern Ireland after all. Now, the report from Policy Exchange dismissed claims that remaining in the ECHR was vital for peace in Northern Ireland. Mr Straw insists that he is not in favour of leaving the ECHR. Nevertheless, this report will be a boost to those who want us out of the convention, including a certain Nigel Farage. I'm delighted now to welcome the former Government Minister, Baroness Kate Hoey. Baroness Hoey, always an absolute pleasure. Of course, you also were a minister under Tony Blair. Jack Straw sounding today almost like Nigel Farage.
Well, no, I don't think that he would like to be described like that. But I think it's very, very important because he's one of the people who's not actually in favour of leaving, but yet is prepared to be quite straightforward that it is not, if we did leave, it wouldn't affect the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. And there's been a lot of hype around about that since Nigel Farage raised the question of leaving, and also the fact that Kemi Badenoch may well be looking at that as well. And this report, you know, which is just so clear and easy to read, is really, really important, because basically it's saying that, yes, of course, the ECHR is mentioned in one aspect of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. There was an international agreement between Ireland and the UK, and then there was an agreement between all the parties. And in the first bit of the international one, it's not mentioned at all. And in the bit about the local parties, it's all about domestic assembly law in Northern Ireland. And so I think those who are using the Belfast Agreement as a way of saying, oh, we couldn't possibly leave, that's now finished. And we can have a proper debate on, you know, whether it's the best thing. I personally think it is. I think we're going to have to leave. It's not, you know, it's not a panacea to all the problems, but it certainly is something that needs to happen.
And Baroness Hoey, we saw with Brexit how Northern Ireland and the Belfast Agreement and the outbreak of the Troubles being renewed was a constant guillotine held over that. And now we've seen it again on leaving the ECHR. But Jack Straw, hardly, you know, an extremist, an intelligent, well-respected man with a huge political pedigree, a former colleague of yours, simply stating out it's not an issue at all.
Yes, I served with Jack in the Home Office, actually, when he was Home Secretary, and he wouldn't have come out with this without being very clear and looking at it carefully. But, you know, all these people have shown such an interest in safeguarding the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. They didn't do anything when, of course, the consent principle was ruined of it, where Northern Ireland was more or less left in the European Union, where the cross-community aspect was ruined, and where the whole democracy element's gone, because we can't vote in Northern Ireland now for all our laws. 300 areas of law are still under the EU. So it's been used very cleverly by those who, really are more interested in protecting the European Union and its views on aspects. But Jack Straw's saying this today, and also Lord Alton, who chairs the House of Lords Human Rights Committee, he has also, while he's not in favour of leaving, he also has made it clear. So I'm very pleased that this report now sets it very clearly, and I think the government is going to have to come up with some other excuses.
Well, Baroness Kate Hoey, it's always an absolute pleasure having your company on GB News. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you. There's plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show, but for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, please stay safe. And here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A83 at Butterbridge is closed due to weather-related debris. Please consider alternative routes as delays are expected. On the M1 southbound between junctions 15 and 14, an accident causes significant disruptions with 3 lanes closed, and road users should anticipate delays of up to 40 minutes. In Kent, on the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 3 and 2, congestion causes delays of approximately 10 minutes, and on the trains expect major disruption between Gravesend and Faversham, while buses replace trains between Corkicle and Whitehaven. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Well, it's transfer deadline day, but for now, our star striker still remains. Here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. I'm terrible at football. Tennis is my game. These are the top stories this half hour. The Home Secretary has promised the biggest shake-up of Britain's borders in years. Faster removals and a crackdown on smugglers. Yvette Cooper says she's committed to fixing every aspect of the broken system she claims Labour inherited.
There would have been tens of thousands more people in asylum accommodation, in asylum hotels across the country right now. That is the kind of chaos that his policies were heading towards.
But the Home Secretary claims that the Shadow Home Secretary, rather, claims that Labour is failing to get a grip on small boats. And Chris Philp says the deterrent must be much tougher.
Everybody entering this country illegally should be immediately removed to their country of origin.
And disaster in Afghanistan. More than 800 people are confirmed dead after a powerful earthquake flattened villages across 4 provinces. Thousands are feared injured. And boxing legend Joe Bugner has died at the age of 75. He was the former British and Commonwealth champion and fought alongside Muhammad Ali. He has died at the age of 75. And Queen Camilla has revealed she once fought off an attempted assault as a teenager, striking her attacker with a shoe on a train to Paddington. She's since vowed to keep trying to end sexual violence. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with the news at 6.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The unsettled weather continues as we go through the next few days. Plenty of showers still to come, even some longer spells of rain. It's all because there's an area of low pressure, quite a mature, deep low pressure, just to the northwest of the UK, driving the fairly unsettled weather that we have at the moment. There will still be quite a few showers to come as we go through the rest of today. They are going to start to ease and clear away as we go overnight for many places, albeit towards the northwest of Scotland. Frequent showers continuing here, and down the western side of England and Wales, a few showers as well overnight. Other places, though, having a good deal of dry and at times clear weather. Under the clear skies, temperatures could drop into single figures, particularly away from the towns and cities. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, well, it's a showery start to the day across parts of Scotland, particularly across the west. This is where we're going to have the heaviest, most frequent showers and a greatest chance of thunder as we go through the day. A brighter start across eastern Scotland, but showers arriving here later on. A mostly dry start for Northern Ireland, but a few showers trying to push their way in, and then showers for western parts of England and Wales, and a more persistent spell of rain pushing into parts of the southwest. Now, this feature is going to make its way eastwards across southern counties as we go through the day tomorrow, and it could be quite heavy at times. There could even be some rumbles of thunder mixed in with it. Elsewhere, a fair few showers to watch out for. These showers becoming a bit more widespread as we go through the day, but perhaps not quite as intense, not as thundery as those that we've seen through today. There will be some sunshine in between the showers, and in that sunshine, temperatures just about getting into the high teens or low 20s for some of us. Later on, the more persistent rain in the south fringes its way into parts of East Anglia before clearing away, and elsewhere we will see the showers starting to fizzle out. But there's more wet and blustery weather to come as we go through Wednesday. For many of us, it does look like a very unsettled day indeed. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, ministers in Israel are drawing up plans to detain Greta Thunberg in terrorist-level conditions after the Swedish activist left Spain on Sunday on the largest flotilla yet, bound for Gaza. Now, this is the second attempt by Ms Thunberg to reach Gaza. A previous unsuccessful effort in June saw her, along with 11 other activists, intercepted by the Israeli Navy 115 miles west of Gaza. But Israel's foreign ministry has accused activists of attempting to stage a media provocation with the sole purpose of gaining publicity. Let's speak now with the foreign and defence analyst James Marlowe. James, always a pleasure to have your company. A lot of people might be saying, good, detain Greta Thunberg, and while you're at it, throw away the key.
Well, there was actually more than 50 vessels that set out from Barcelona and other European countries and Northern African countries from 40 different countries. And I have a statement from the organisers that say they've abandoned ship. So I'm not sure if you've got word from this. This came from Reuters, and the abandoned ship is due to choppy waters. There was a little bit of rain. Weather conditions were really bad, so this is the Mossad weather machine stepping in again, and they've returned home. They're not quite sure when they're going to set out again, and their exact words are, and I'm reading this from their statement, "We are postponing our voyage to avoid risking complications for the smaller vessels." Now let's just understand this. These vessels are kind of old, rusty, oily diesel vessels, and I believe you have a number of these former climate activists, including the lady that you just mentioned from Sweden, who doesn't seem to care so much anymore for the environment or for climate change, but has got onto the new bandwagon because there's more money in it, it's more lucrative, it's more popular, and of course they try to do this for a PR stunt. Now, this is the same lady, I'm talking about Greta, of course, this is the same lady who just a few days after October the 7th, 2023, actually talked about the resistance having a right to defend themselves despite the beheadings and the burning of babies and, of course, the mass rape and the taking into Gaza of 251 hostages. So it's clearly not something to do with humanitarian reasons. And it's quite extraordinary how a little bit of water, some rain.
We've lost James Marlowe there.
Heading out towards Gaza.
Oh, He's back. I think you're intercepted yourself there, James Marlowe, by perhaps some choppy waters. On a serious point, this sounds a bit like the dog ate my homework. Oh, it's choppy waters. Not the fact, actually, you're about to be banged up in the slammer by a Mossad and be treated like a terrorist. Has the plant-based vegan chickened out?
Well, I'm not sure that the Israelis were really going to do this, because I think that's what they are hoping for. They really want to be manhandled or woman-handled by the Israelis. They really want to be grabbed, thrown into a jail and starved for a few days. That's what they're looking to do, because then they can get out and tell the media how bad the Israelis are really doing. The last time they did this, they were actually offered sandwiches, kosher sandwiches with a stamp of approval from the Rabbanut, the rabbis across Israel. And bottles of water, of course, and many of them accepted that. They accepted the sandwiches. And I understand up to a couple of days ago, the Israelis were preparing more sandwiches for them. So they weren't going to be thrown into the slammer. But of course, this is an extra headache for the Israelis, because they are fighting a real war, and they're fighting against Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the Fatah al-Aqsa, and the Mujahideen, and the Palestinian Resistance Committee, which, by the way, is the third largest terror group still operating in Gaza. So they don't really want to be dealing with these young activists who don't seem to know anything about anything in the world.
Got to say, James Marlowe, if you look at Greta Thunberg's new haircut, a lot of people feel that might be worthy of a prison sentence. It looks like something out of the Magna Carta. Have you seen it? It's like a bowl cut gone wrong. I digress. James Marlowe, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to have your company on the show. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, if you're searching some holiday sun this year, and who can blame you? Here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's remaining unsettled across parts of Central Europe as we go for the next few days. Either side, plenty of dry and sunny weather to be had. There could be a few showers on Tuesday across parts of the Canaries, but still plenty of dry and fine weather to be had. And for much of Iberia, actually, plenty of sunshine around. But then we come back into the risk of some severe thunderstorms across parts of Italy and southern France. But then for much of Greece and Turkey, it's back to the sunshine, with temperatures in places here reaching the low 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Don't come at me with a knife.
I'll get sued. Okay, right, let's go.
Okay.
Is it going to be a boy or a girl? And I need to do it facing. Oh, there we go.
Oh. Oh.
It is.
Oh.
Hey.
Oh. Not another young Patrick. Emily and Patrick.
It's going to be another Patrick.
I just wanted to give you a little token of something.
Now that you got the gender wrong.
No, who was to know? Who was to know? You kept the secret well. It's just to rip through the paper. It's just a very little thing for the little baby.
It's gosh, a lot of wrapping paper.
Yeah, it's to make it look bigger than it actually is. It's somewhere. Come on. No, it's there somewhere. There you go.
Oh, brilliant.
It's a little.
What is this?
GB baby.
I get a little smell.
The archetypal GB baby. I'm sure.
You do treat me, Tom.
I'm sure your son will have a show at about 6 months old. It's just absolutely inevitable.
Well, there you go. We can make the GBBs. That's very sweet of you. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss all you guys, actually.
Yeah, I really hope you don't stay away for too long, and I hope you're going to be coming back in whatever shape or form sort of throughout the process.
You have me back.
I hope we're going to zoom in and see you sort of, from your maternity bed.
Well, there was a conversation about doing some kind of 24, one born every minute.
24 hours a minute.
Yeah, well, I think we vetoed that, but we could get Cameron Walker outside the window.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:47. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a wonderful, heart-warming story next, because a 17-year-old Hannah Breeden was born prematurely, and her parents were told that she wouldn't even survive the night, and then she wouldn't survive the week, and next, Hannah wouldn't even survive the month. But now, nearly 18 years later, Hannah is still a bright and cheery, young, beautiful girl. But Hannah has severe learning difficulties and muscular dystrophy, and doctors say she won't be able to get a certificate to fly from 2027 onwards, as she'll simply be too unwell to take to an aircraft. Now, in a bid to arrange one last dream holiday abroad, Hannah's family have created a crowdfunder to help raise money to take their wonderful daughter to Disney World for Hannah's last holiday. I'm delighted to say. I'm now joined by Hannah and her wonderful father, Simon, from our studio in Paddington. Welcome to you both, and thank you, Simon. I know you've both driven down today to be with us on GB News. Your story moved me to the core. Let's start, if we can, with that day almost 18 years ago when Hannah was born and you were told she wouldn't even make it through the night, but she's still here.
Yeah, thanks for having us on the show. Yeah, as you said, Hannah was born prematurely, and she had to be ventilated and in ICU. And it was just, a real bumpy ride all the way along. The doctors kept saying that, don't get your hopes up. She isn't going to be around for very long. And she's gone and proved everyone wrong. She's fought and fought and fought. They said she would never get off a ventilator. She got off the ventilator. They said she'd never eat orally. She now eats orally. They said she'd never drink, and she now drinks. And she's proven everyone wrong. She went into liver failure at 5 days old, and her bilirubin went up, and luckily she got secured a transplant when she was 4 years and 9 months, and again changed the way transplants were done across Europe and stuff, and helped change some of the ways things are done. So she's managed to upset everyone by not following the rule book.
And she's given a great deal back to medicine in her lifetime there. There she is, chirping away, and she clearly deserves this final break, Simon. And as I understand it, this is also, her condition has come at great personal cost to yourself. You had to give up your dream job, because also Hannah's mother herself has muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, my wife, Hannah's mum, worked as a nurse at a local hospital, and basically she started noticing some problems. And to be honest, it sounds harsh, but her boss tried to get her sacked on the grounds of capability because she was in a lot of pain and stuff. After occupational health saw her, they medically retired her because she was genetically tested and found to be having myotonic dystrophy, which is one of the main muscular dystrophies out there. So she was forced to retire from her dream job as well. And over many years, there's been a lot of struggles, and somehow we've managed to get through it all.
And now there's a crowdfunder out there. Sent to me by a mutual friend, Ash. There's a crowdfunder out there. Let's get it on the screen and tell us about how people can get involved.
I know the figure seems a lot, but the initial quote we had, because of the disabilities and stuff, is a little over £12,500, and it's extra because of the disabilities. And then travel insurance is a provisional quote at the moment. It's £1,500–1,600, which is always higher when you've got complex medical needs, and then other things with it. So I know the figure's high, and I know it's difficult for everyone at the moment. We're all struggling. It doesn't matter who you are. Cost of living is terrible at the moment. But if you can spare a fiver, then please do. Every little would help.
And tell us, if you can, try to quantify what you think this dream holiday, Hannah's last holiday abroad, because she will be too unwell to fly after this. She won't have the certification. Tell us what you think this will mean for her.
Hannah has learning difficulties and stuff, and she really loves the Disney stuff. Now, I'm not saying we've never been to Disney. We have been there once before, but we didn't stay on the park and that. And she talks about it all the time. In fact, she's got a photograph album that she often gets out and keeps saying that she wants to go back. But due to the deterioration in her neck muscles and leg muscles and stuff, trips will be a lot more difficult. And later on in life, she's going to need assistance in breathing via BiPAP or full ventilation and stuff. So it won't be practical to do it too long in the future. So it's kind of trying to get in now while we can before it's too late, and we won't be able to do it.
And Simon, you're exactly right. People are finding it hard to get by themselves. But, GB News viewers have a wonderful ability to donate, to make dreams come true. Tell us what you think this will mean to your beautiful daughter.
I'm sure she'll be talking about it for months to come, and Hannah gets fixated due to she's got slightly autistic traits that's come with a muscular dystrophy. So, for example, Christmas, she's already asking Alexa every single day how many sleeps there are, because she loves Christmas and all that. So if we have another countdown where she'll be pestering us to cross off the calendar and to look forward to another trip and to go and see all her favourite characters in Disney.
Well, wonderful stuff.
She's
just hear it.
Burbling
What's she
away.
saying there?
Sorry, what is she saying, Hannah? Oh, no, she wants to go home now.
Yeah, well, who can blame her? I have that effect on people. But on a serious point, Simon and Hannah, wonderful to have your company at GBNews today.
Thank you for having us on.
It's an absolute pleasure. I really hope people can dig in. I'll put a few quid in myself. Let's try and get you to Disneyland. One final dream trip. Simon and Hannah Breeden, beautiful, safe journey back. Thanks for joining us today on GB News. Well, how do you top that?
Thank you.
Well, there's one way, because 6 p.m. next, and Jubes & Co. is up next. Let's now speak with the Queen of Primetime TV, Michelle Dewberry.
Hello, Martin. Well, it is great to be back. I have missed you all. What a wonderful story there. Warms your heart, doesn't it? Let's hope she makes it to Disneyland. Coming up on my show tonight, I've got Sarah Perchin, the Reform UK MP. I've got Barry Gardner, the Labour MP, and we have got a lot to discuss. I want to talk about these new asylum policy claims. Do you think all of these tough-talking rhetoric will make a blind bit of difference? Expansion of childcare. I also want to look at that and a whole lot more. Reform say that they've uncovered a scandal that might be costing many of my viewers more than a few quid. So let's grab ourselves a drink. I'll see you in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The unsettled weather continues as we go through the next few days. Plenty of showers still to come, even some longer spells of rain. It's all because there's an area of low pressure, quite a mature, deep low pressure, just to the northwest of the UK, driving the fairly unsettled weather that we have at the moment. There will still be quite a few showers to come as we go through the rest of today. They are going to start to ease and clear away as we go overnight for many places, albeit towards the northwest of Scotland. Frequent showers continuing here, and down the western side of England and Wales, a few showers as well overnight. Other places, though, having a good deal of dry and at times clear weather. Under the clear skies, temperatures could drop into single figures, particularly away from the towns and cities. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, well, it's a showery start to the day across parts of Scotland, particularly across the west. This is where we're going to have the heaviest, most frequent showers and a greatest chance of thunder as we go through the day. A brighter start across eastern Scotland, but showers arriving here later on. A mostly dry start for Northern Ireland, but a few showers trying to push their way in, and then showers for western parts of England and Wales, and a more persistent spell of rain pushing into parts of the southwest. Now, this feature is going to make its way eastwards across southern counties as we go through the day tomorrow, and it could be quite heavy at times. There could even be some rumbles of thunder mixed in with it. Elsewhere, a fair few showers to watch out for. These showers becoming a bit more widespread as we go through the day, but perhaps not quite as intense, not as thundery as those that we've seen through today. There will be some sunshine in between the showers, and in that sunshine, temperatures just about getting into the high teens or low 20s for some of us. Later on, the more persistent rain in the south fringes its way into parts of East Anglia before clearing away, and elsewhere we will see the showers starting to fizzle out. But there's more wet and blustery weather to come as we go through Wednesday. For many of us, it does look like a very unsettled day indeed. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Road users are advised to exercise caution when crossing the A87 Skye Bridge due to high winds impacting driving conditions. In Northamptonshire, the M1 southbound faces congestion issues between Junction 15A and Junction 15, causing delays of 20 minutes. Meanwhile, in Kent, congestion on the M25 anti-clockwise at Junction 2 is currently adding delays of 10 minutes. And on the trains, Southeastern is experiencing major disruptions between Gravesend and Rainham in Kent, as well as Faversham. Northern services have buses replacing trains between Corkickle and Whitehaven. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new